He has published approximately 400 scholarly works encompassing 250 free journal papers, 18 books, 18 chapters in books, and 100 and he continues to write popular articles for the general public, including us all, Prof. Prof. Osman has supervised approximately 50 postdoctoral research fellows, PhD and master's students. He is currently supervising 13 PhD and master's students. He is frequently invited as a prominent speaker in many national and international intellectual fora. Prof is a member of several bodies. He continues to render public services and consultancies to many public and private organizations. So far, that is the gist or the brief about the Prof. If we were to have his full profile, we wouldn't end it here. But before we go into the session, we are going to share with you some of Prof's knowledge transfer works. That's to tell us that he's not only speaking from theory, but he's deeply involved in the practical aspect of agriculture. So please, let's spend a few minutes to just glance through. Okay, we thank you so much for watching. Without further taking our time, we'd like to proceed to session 1 of today's lecture. And before that, I would like to inform that certificates will be provided to those who will fill up the evaluation form at the end of the session. I also would like everyone to remain muted. However, during the session, if you have any questions you want to ask or some contributions to make, you can do so. I'd like to Ready, Prof? Can you share slide?
Dr. Mustaka, thank you very much. Is it okay, your background, please? There's a bit of noise.
Yeah, I need to mute first. Okay.
All right, thank you very much, everyone. And then Assalamu alaikum to all of you. I would like to thank the organizers, particularly Dr. Mutaka, and then we are talking about Anur, and then the Ghanaian, Students Association in Malaysia. And of course, our respected audience for taking your time to be here. And then we will try to see whether we'll be able to answer the question, whether agriculture will be able to redeem, Africa in terms of wealth creation. And whatever I'm going to present here is not by myself only. I have my research team. And then if you don't mind, we have our members to be here. So I'm not very sure if you allow me just 1 or 2 minutes for me to call out a few of them who are here to show their faces personally, so that I think we could take a record, because I wouldn't want to take a glory here. So
Sure, Prof.
Am I allowed? Permitted? Okay.
Sure.
Dr. Latifa,
Sure.
I think you have all seen your names. So those of you who are here, please, put on your camera for us to also acknowledge you. Dr. Latifa, if you are here, you put on your camera. John, you are here.
Good morning, everyone. It's evening here in our country. Good morning and good morning and good evening. Yeah.
Put on your camera. Daya, you are here. Kindly put on your camera. Lucia, you are here. Priska, Dr. Priska. And then
and good evening to those in Malaysia.
Uven, Raj. I'm not sure what's the background. I'm not really sure what's the background. And then who else? Those of you that have not mentioned your name, please, if you are here, I have acknowledged you. So we will start now. Oops. Is this background from me or from somebody else?
It's from someone.
Yeah, is it okay? We settle this. Right, so let's go straight away. Now, the talk will cover, I'm going to talk about current information on what we call it, farming in general. Then we will talk about smart farming, and then we will go into sustainable soil agriculture, and then we talk about soilless agriculture. And then there'll be the take-home message as to whether we're able to answer the question that we are trying to address. Now, if we look at this gentleman here, all that we can say is that we will associate his situation to poverty, or associated it with poverty, because that is the picture, that the mental picture that we paint. Whenever you tell somebody you are in farming, the first mental picture will be that you are a poor person. And this is another example where this is cocoa, and we know cocoa is the bedrock in terms of agriculture for Ghana. You are talking about Ivory Coast, Nigeria, Cameroon. So you can see even the golden crop also, those who are involved are considered as the downtrodden, folks, which is another negative impression about agriculture. And when we talk about agriculture, we also see that is a kind of medieval kind of agriculture. Cutlass is a hose. Those are the things that we use. I'm talking about the mental picture. If I say a medical doctor, the mental picture that comes into your mind. So these are some of the things that whenever you say you are in agriculture, it creates that kind of impression. And now we want to revert that situation. That is why I'm going to show you that the current situations, the scenarios that we are drawing, actually they are not like that. Now, for me to start, I want to provoke any one of you here that this is the belief. Africa has never needed the world. Rather, the world has always needed Africa. Is there anyone who agree with me, or anyone who disapprove this? Just a quick one.
I agree.
All right, thank you very much. Now, if we agree, let us just go a little bit here. We can see clearly that Africa is the center of the world. So that it itself is a competitive advantage. where you have you being the center of the world, where you can deal with other parts of the continent. That one alone is a huge potential and a huge advantage. But the question is, have we been able to capitalize on that or not? Now, the next thing will be, we can see this is very, very clear and common to the world, unless those of you who are not informed, that Africa is one of the richest continents in the world. You can imagine, look at the 54 countries, if I'm not mistaken, I'm not very sure whether it's 53, 54, I'm not sure. However, there is not a single country in Africa that has not been blessed with natural resources. We are not even talking about the human capital. So these are the things. This is one of the reasons why we say that the rest will rather need Africa, and Africa will not actually, go after them. However, I'm not saying that we are living in a vacuum. I'm just using this kind of situation. So how is it so that things are not clicking very well? So then we can also talk about the ecological zones. You can talk about it vis-a-vis the world. We have all the ecological zones. So why is it that we are not able to capitalize? I'm trying to base my foundation on all things being equal. We are not talking about geopolitics now. We all know that. So we are leveling that. We are just talking about purely what is in front of us. So those are the things. So here, if you talk about the world, we have 12 orders of soils. And these 12 orders, with the exception of, let's say, jelly soil. When you talk about jelly soil, you are talking about tundra areas where it snows very heavily. That place also we have soils, but in Africa it doesn't snow. So that will be the only soil. Even that soil is a very fragile soil that is very challenging to work with if you talk about the Greenland and whatever. But other kind of soils, they are all available in Africa. So why is it so? And then maybe the other soil that we might not have much will be ND soil, because we don't have much volcanic eruptions. You get what I'm saying? So those are some of the things. So basically we have what it takes to be champion in agriculture. So before I go on, I just have to give you a reminder. Let us remind ourselves. Then this reminder will be that, you see, I purposely show you the mental picture that we create about whoever is a farmer. We are talking about modern farmer, not the medieval kind of farming. So I would like to just remind you that agriculture is an applied science. So you have to learn the sciences and then you apply. So we don't go into agriculture when we have no clue, we don't have the basic knowledge and understanding of the agriculture. This is the impression that we create. Anybody can go in, and when you start making losses, then that is the only thing that you realize that it's an applied science. Now, we should also understand that when we talk about agriculture, in most cases, we take agriculture to be like the last point of what? Call. When we are desperate, we have tried many avenues, we are not making it, then we feel that agriculture is the last point. I think with this kind of attitude, it can be very difficult for us to make a breakthrough. However, if you have a personal interest and you really want to go into agriculture, that is fine. I'm going to demonstrate to you that now, even if you have money, you don't need to hold the land. You can invest and then you get whatever you want to get out. And then definitely, I just show you those folks there, and the impression is that it's just a dirty work. And if it's not a dirty work, then it's for the old folks. I think this is not really true, because if you go to other parts of the world, it's not like that. And it's also not a poor man's job or maybe a poor woman's job. We only think that only the poor goes to agriculture. Actually, no. And then the other thing that perhaps we have to look into is to look at agriculture as a business. Actually, it's a business. And because it's a business, it's a specialized kind of environment that you need specialized expertise, just like any other professions. So these are some of the reminders that I would like to put across. So let us start to dive into addressing the question. Now, if we can see here, in Africa in particular, I'm not talking about the rest of the world because the subject is Africa. The rest of the world also have their own potentials. But as far as Africa is concerned, we have very huge opportunities to go into agriculture, but we need to embrace modern farming. I think last 2 months, I gave a tidbit of the modern farming. That is what we call the smart farming. If we can really tap into that, then we will be better than where we are now. This is one of the reasons why when you take the African Development Bank, the president, I share this sentiment. His belief is that the next generation, the millionaires and the billionaires in Africa might not come from the oil industry, might not come from the banking industry or whatever. It is going to come from what we call farming. And only when we talk about modern farming, it is not me who is saying this. is the president of the African Development Bank. And I think we will try to see whether we can really concur with him or not. I think in a way he has a point, because when you look at the Africa, the sub-Saharan Africa alone, we are talking about 60% of the small-scale farmers are located in sub-Saharan Africa. And you can imagine what we are talking about across West Africa, in the Middle Belt or whatever. So 60% are involved in agriculture. And you can imagine 23% of them contribute to the GDP of Africa just from agriculture. This is why I think I concur with the president of the African Development Bank. It's just that we have been under-exploiting our potentials. That being the case, then the question is, have we been able to fully tap into this agricultural potential that we are trying to talk about? I personally feel no, because if you have tapped into that, then we should have been counted in the global, context. So that being the case, I'm going to focus a little bit on the fascinating facts about the huge potentials of, the African agriculture that we are trying to look at. Why am I talking about? We will talk about the huge potentials, and then how do we tap into them in a way that we develop our agriculture in a very sustainable manner, because we don't want to commit the mistake of the Green Revolution, although I'm going to come into that. So now, like the president said, if we talk about the billionaires and millionaires that will come from the farming systems, that we will have to say how. So if we really go into agriculture with modern farming, by 2030, it's not going to be oil. It's not going to be other resources other than agriculture. So we are going to rake, we are going to rake almost $1 trillion if we really expand our agricultural activity instead of food production, and then lace it with what we call agribusiness. If we can do that, then we have 1 trillion to reap. Now, therefore, if any one of you here, or most of us here, if we are thinking of making money, then we should also look to agriculture. Especially, there are different industries that you can, get yourself into. So those are the things that I think we will be discussing as I move along. Now, let us look at this. If you look at the agriculture sector alone, it can produce, apart from billionaires and millionaires or whatever, this is only for the African agriculture, only the sector. If I were to go a little bit deep, this is what is going to challenge the future professions. You see, the so-called prestigious professions that we know, the moment you say you read law, you are a lawyer, maybe you are a medical doctor, engineer, I think the societal respect in this kind of profession actually will be changing. Because if Africa is going to produce billionaires and millionaires, then I think that the whole ball game is going to change completely. So those are the challenges that we are putting across now. Now, therefore, we can say that the ones look upon that the profession that has been looked down for many years, I'm talking about Africa, because other parts of the world it's not like that. In that case, then we are talking about the present and the future agriculture will be the gold mines for we, the Africans, and then those who are interested to go into agriculture in Africa. Therefore, why? Because whether we like it or not, the global food demand will continue to rise. It's going to continue like this, whether we like it or not. And who will feed the world? And these are some of the things. This is why the issue is going to hinge on money making. Now, if we look at the current trends, we can see that by 2050, we will need extra 50% of the food that we are consuming now. So if we are going to need this kind of huge volumes of food, and we are having a loss of land, and certain parts of the world are already losing their lands, you will see that we have no choice, but we have to turn to Africa. I'm going to demonstrate it to you very soon. So now, if we go further, if we want to reverse that kind of situation across the globe, then the world food basket is going to be in Africa. And then I'm going to demonstrate that. If we look at it, even within Africa, if you are talking about 1.2 billion now, we can see that the income, I mean, we are having some sort of middle level income springing up in different parts of the continent. And you know, African population is also growing rapidly, second to Asia. But in terms of density, then we are a little bit low. So here we are trying, if we use that one even as a leverage, it's also to advantage. And of course, with this kind of growth, we are going to also have some demand for food within ourselves, being it a medium term to long term. So this alone is going to create a lot of growth and opportunities with respect to employment. Now, the other aspect that I can ask, the question that we can ask now is, you are talking about this kind of big kind of achievement or potential, whatever. Charity begins at home. If anything at all, can Africa feed herself or not? I'm using her here because we believe Africa is a motherland. So I'm using the word her. So now the point now is what you see in the media and what you see across the globe is not what we are cut for. So that is a question. So I'm not trying to say anything funny. So if you look at it, look at the African, continent, and look at this part, you can see that of course, we have challenges with soil and whatever, but generally you can see every part of Africa, can be cultivated. Remember, even if it's a desert area, we are talking about desert agriculture. So every part can be cultivated only if we are serious and then try to look into it. So to summarize it all, you can see every part, but we have taken 10 top African countries in terms of arable land that could even feed the whole continent. One of them being Nigeria. You can see clearly Nigeria is a very vast area and 41.2% of it is an arable land. And there's a belief that we have that Nigeria alone will even feed West Africa. And then Togo is also there. So 10, we have Gambia, Sierra Leone, Togo, Nigeria. We have Mauritius, Comoros Island, Uganda, Rwanda, and Burundi. Of course, we are talking about Malawi. We are not saying that other parts of, the other African countries are not. We are talking about top 10 in terms of arable land with respect to the total size. So these are the countries. Later on, I'm going to trim them down to 3. Right. So, but one of the challenges that so far we can see on the continent is post-harvest loss. Post-harvest loss has been a very big problem. It's not only in Africa, but in the whole world. But because I'm talking about Africa, we are talking about post-harvest loss. And then also, how do we really transform our agro-industrial waste? These are the 2 things that I think that if we could do that, that one itself can generate a lot of work for us, a lot of wealth for us. We all know the problem we have with waste management. Now, if we take an example, if we take the continent of Africa and we are talking about rural farming area, the communities, 50% of their produce get perished. They get perished simply because of circumstances that are beyond their control and a little bit of less developed infrastructure, inadequate infrastructure. This could be in terms of roads, it could be even in terms of vans. How do you get your produce to the market and whatever seasonal kind of thing? How do we preserve them? So those are some of the challenges that if we could solve them, then it will really propel us. For instance, I understand in the Kano state of Nigeria, there is a tomato growing area called Kura. Now this area, almost every year they lose 50% of their produce, not because the farmers are not doing well, but the problem is because of maybe like poor roads are militating against the farmers to get to the access to markets. And this cut across. So this is just an example that I could pick up and then see, because I believe that in Nigeria, we can't talk about agriculture without Nigeria. Nigeria is the one that is even holding West Africa, if not the rest of Africa. So now when we go to the next stage, if you take Sub-Saharan Africa, almost 50% of our fruits and vegetables get perished because of lack of proper infrastructure or storage facilities or preservation and processing. And then we are talking about tubers. You know, in Africa, you cannot do without tubers. And then you are talking about roots kind of, food. That one also 40%, 20% of cereals, legumes, and pulses. And you know, our cereals, a lot of cereals and legumes. And most of them could have generated a lot of income for us, but they perish. So these are the things that we really, really have to work on if we were to make it. So this is why we say that we have the potential to actually create a lot of wealth. Waste itself is a lot, it's a wealth, but if we can avoid it and then get the value for money, I think that will be good for us. Now, that being the case, we can talk about tapping on our expertise. And it's very encouraging that we are having a lot of expertise. We are having a lot of technocrats, we are having intellectuals, and then we also having the knowledge. And then the other thing that we need to do is to develop our innovations, especially in terms of processing, preservation. These are some of the sectors that I think that we should be able to develop. Otherwise, if we can do that, then we should be able to feed ourselves and then even export to the rest of the world. Now, if we go to the rest of the world, where do we feature? And how do we say that even the continent of Africa can feed the rest of the world? This is the challenge. If you look at it closely, it is known that Africa is the only continent in the world which never experienced green revolution. So organic agriculture alone could propel us to the next level. And then look at it, it's very glaring. Between 60 to 65% of the world uncultivated arable land is found in Africa. So that itself is a huge area that we could tap into. So slowly I'm answering the questions. A number of people, a number of perceptions have been going on that, oh, Africa is a poor continent. They don't even have good access to water, whatever. Actually, that is not the case. If only we manage our system, or just recently, it has been discovered that, in fact, if you talk about underground water, there's a lot of underground water, but how we tap them and work on them will be what is very important. So here we are talking about renewable water, fresh water. Almost 10% of the requirement of the world can be supplied from Africa. Now, when we come down to, if we were to bring the whole world together and look at the arable lands that could feed the whole world, now you can see clearly, if you look at this color, it is telling you that the challenge in the soil, not even the north and south of America, they're going to have a very serious challenge if they were to reverse the situation. And then if you look at Australia and then some part of Asia, you can see it is only this continent that has not got to that level. This is what we are trying to tell you. So here we are between the green and then the light yellow. So you can see the green could be the readily available land that could be easily cultivated, and then the gray ones are undocumented. So you can see it's between Asia and Africa. Clearly we can see it's Asia and Africa that is going to hold the world in terms of food, in terms of what we call it, our needs in agriculture. But where Africa supersede Asia a little bit is, you can look at the light yellow color. You can see here will be the challenge, the next level to what we call no-go zone. But that is not the issue. Of course, Africa also will have that, but we are talking about population density per land. That is where Africa will reign supreme vis-a-vis Asia, but Asia and Africa will be the backbone of the world food. Now, the reason is like this. If you look at this, if you look at the ecological zone, I'm trying to be very professional here. We have our negative size or whatever. I'm just highlighting the strengths and the weaknesses. So you can see, depending on the technology that we employ or deploy, we can cultivate the whole continent based on the technology. So if we don't invest in the technology, then we will still remain where we are, if not being poor. So then what is the issue? There is hope, because we can see for the last 30 years, the agricultural development has increased dramatically from, where to up to 160%. That itself is really, really encouraging. But the question is it sustainable? Are we degrading the environment? Those are the issues. So we need to be very smart in the way. The figures alone might not show the true picture. Now I give an example, going down to Ghana. I remember in the 70s, there was somebody called a Champon, the head of one of our head of states. He had a vision of going into what we call Operation Feed Yourself. So there was a massive kind of Operation Feed Yourself, mean we need to go into agriculture in a massive way. I do remember. And when it was adopted when it was adopted, what was realized that during that time, Ghana was able to produce a lot of food even in excess. So if we could even do that in the 70s, why can't we do them now that we have the technology? Right, but how the whole thing fizzle out, only God knows. Now, if we go to DR Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo, Congo alone, if they focus on agriculture, they should be able to provide food for 2 billion people. Now, what is how many are we on the continent? We are 1.2 to 1.3. So that means that Congo alone, you know the Congo basin, you know how huge it is, you know how rich it is. Congo alone should be able to feed the whole of Africa. So you can imagine why we are telling you that we have the wealth, but we are not tapping into the wealth. The next example that I'm going to give you is, you see, you can't talk about agriculture without energy. Now, the same Democratic Republic of Congo is having this ambition of coming out with this, what we call the hydroelectric power called the Grand Inga Dam. The Inga is a fall, one of the huge falls in Africa. So they are going to invest almost 80 billion. I think they are talking with some Australians and then the Chinese companies, and I think some in Switzerland, if I'm not mistaken. They already had it. They had it in 1972 and then 1982. Now they are going big. And the ambition is to generate 42 gigawatts. And you can imagine this 42 gigawatt can even satisfy the energy need of the sub-Saharan Africa by 30%. If you talk about the whole of Africa, they can supply 40%, 40%, and the whole of Africa per annum will need about 120 gigawatts. So these are some of the things. This is the example that I'm giving you. So if let's say Congo alone can supply this and the rest of Africa are doing well, then energy should not be the issue, because without energy or hydroelectric power or any source of power, then we are going to have problems. I know you're going to talk about environmental issue. That is not the issue now, assuming that we are talking about sustainable power. Right. Coming down, something very amazing about this ambitious project is that we know in the world there are two countries. China has one of the biggest hydro dams in the world, and then we have one in South America. Can you imagine the Grand Inga Dam alone will swallow this thing together? Because none of them are able to produce even 20 gigawatts. So you can imagine what Congo alone can do. What about the rest of Africa? So you can imagine what we are losing. Now, coming down, what will be the return of investment? They're going to put in 80 billion, and this is not me, this is the World Bank and then the other parts of financial institutions. It's not me who is plugging the information. If all things being equal, we should be able to rate 50 trillion. And remember the rippling effects in terms of socioeconomic growth and development. This is only one country. So you can imagine the rest of Africa. Now, if we go a little bit further, we do know that by 2050, the world population will be 10 billion, between 9 to 10 billion. And of course, like I said, the food demand will be there. So if we could capitalize on this and increase our food output and then we can even export instead of producing what we don't eat, and we export what we don't produce. Those kind of things should change, and then we will see how it works out. Now, what will be the implication? The implication will be, we know for a fact that China today is dominating the manufacturing world. Whether we like it or not, China is the leader. So if Africa is serious, then Africa should also be the future leader in agriculture. So those are the two posts that we could see. That's why I said the next generational development is between Asia and Africa in terms of these kind of areas. Right, I will show you very soon, even in terms of population-wise. Now, this is the opportune time for us to invest in technology, not only looking at the land mass. Yes, we have the land, but if you don't know, if you don't have the technological know-how to develop your agriculture, the land mass will be as useless as anything. I'm going to show you Netherlands, what they did. It's a small country, but they are topping in terms of agriculture. I'm going to show you very soon. So let us be complacent on the land mass. We must approach the whole thing with knowledge, and then from there with understanding. So let's look at the Netherlands. Those of you who know Netherlands, another name is Holland, the Dutch. They are the 17th largest economy in the world. But if you talk about agriculture, those of you who are who knows Wageningen University, they are well known for agriculture. It's a very, very respectable and reputable agriculture. I mean, it's not an agriculture university, but they are very good in agriculture. So when you look at the area, it's just 41,543 square kilometers. And look at it, the size is just that if we were to take Rwanda and we double the size of Rwanda, you can see that Netherlands is even smaller. Rwanda is a small country in Africa. So look at the population, but just look at when they embrace technology and when they go into it very well, you can see what they've been doing. In 2017, a very small country like Netherlands was the second largest exporter of food. Netherlands, not even China. So the size doesn't matter, but the way you use your technological know-how. Just look at it. Their export contribution was $92 billion only from agriculture. So this is why we say agriculture is business, and Africa will have to pull its generational billionaires and millionaires from agriculture. Now, what was the secret behind the success of Netherlands? They focus on innovative technologies. When we talk about innovative technologies, even smart way of thinking, smart way of using old technologies and modifying them, they all come together. And with that, they were able to produce outstanding results in terms of their outputs. Well, what is the example that we have to show here? Let's take potato as an example. You know, in Europe, they like to take potato a lot. So potato alone, the average yield is 9 tons per hectare across. But they developed their own technology and they were able to produce 20 tons per hectare. You see, they have doubled it. Later on, I'm going to show you a similar approach that we've also used to double certain yields of crop. The video that Dr. Muntaka showed, unfortunately, I think the line was so slow. You could have seen how beautiful it is to go into this kind of changes. From here, just look at it. If we talk about vegetables, just within 12 years or 11 years, they were able to increase their vegetable production by 28%. Remember, it's very, very remarkable. Now they have reduced the use of energy in agricultural production by 6%. And fertilizer, which has been implicated in the ozone depletion, they have reduced it to 29%. So here, what I can say is that they are also working towards the carbon credit. And all these things will manifest in resources in terms of, capital. Then what is the competitive advantage of Africa then after showing this? We still have the competitive advantage. One, we have the land side, the land mass. If we could capitalize on the land mass and even we can optimize per hectare basis, I think we should be able to make it. Remember, we can do that if we adopt technology, agricultural technology. I'll talk about them not later, not now. And if we talk about that, the youth is on our side. So we can go into modern agriculture and then we can make it. I will show you why I think the youth is on our side if we really give them the opportunity. Now, remember, I did tell you that we have 60 to 65% of arable land that have not been cultivated. And the reason being that we were not part of the Green Revolution. Aggressively, we were not part. When the Green Revolution set in, the only continent in the world that did not participate actively was Africa. Now, a little bit of history, if you talk about Green Revolution, we are talking about the period where we move away from all these kind of medieval kind of labor-intensive kind of agriculture and whatever. And then we were able to improve rapidly our productivity. I'll talk about them when I talk about agriculture 1.0 to agriculture 4.0. And that was through research. We advanced the research together with knowledge and technology. Those were the times that when they advanced the knowledge, what came into mind was to use chemical fertilizers, synthetic herbicides, and pesticides. And there was a dramatic boom. In fact, one of the intellectuals who championed this is called Bullock. He did it in the southern part of America when people were starving and whatever. That's why when you go to Minnesota University, his name is there. The only Nobel scientist in agriculture, Nobel Science winner, right? So here, if we talk about it, that time, this is what saved the world. You see, 1 billion people were saved from the Green Revolution. So this is the beauty of knowledge. So it's not something that cannot be done in Africa, right? From that period, what really happened to Africa? There was some sort of misplacement of priority. We misplaced our priority. And why am I saying this? We never participated because those were the times that some countries were discovering oil and other resources. So when you look at Nigeria at that time, discovered oil. Although Nigeria had the potential of going massively into agriculture at that time, they abandoned, I'm not saying they abandoned, but agriculture was on the sideline, low profile. So that was why we fell out. But in a way also it's good for us because we still have some of our land intact that could help us. So it's not too late. And if Nigeria were to go back into serious agriculture, it should be able to definitely feed us, right? Now, but the question is here. If we were to save our people from starvation and hunger, then we need to develop our own type of green revolution because we don't want to repeat the old mistake, the previous mistakes. So we must tailor the needs to meet the local content, but we can get to the rest of the world. That is why it must be an indigenous type of move. Otherwise, I'm afraid we will fall into the pit and nobody will forgive us because the experience is there. Now, if really we are going to go into this kind of system, the belief is that we should be able to double or triple the current agricultural productivity, again, with technology plus the youth. Why am I saying this? We could do so if only we focus on certain crops that are very, very valuable and high demand crops. Cereals, whether we like it or not, we will still need cereals, we will still need grains. So even your staple food and whatever should be handled carefully so that we will not start to export. You can imagine most countries export a lot of rice where you could grow your own rice. And it is taking a lot of money from the, what you call it, the state capitals. Now, if you talk about cereals, if Africa were to be serious with and then dive into agriculture, 20% of the cereals and grains that will be needed by the world will be produced by Africa. At the moment, we need 2.6 billion. So if Africa were to improve and even give us 20 million extra after they have fed themselves, that could be a huge capital. So those are the realities. Now, what about the horticultural crops and then the livestock industry? Those areas also could be propelled into the highest realm if only we adopt new ways of doing agriculture. what are these countries that we think if we allow them to do what they can do best, whether they will be able to put us across. So here, the concept of United States of Africa that Dr. Nkrumah and the group champion is really coming into agriculture, because this is what we're going to talk about, specialization for all. So if you look at this, if you take about 60% of the agricultural potential will come from only 9 countries in Africa. The rest can produce other things, but 9 of them alone should suffice, and we could do other things. Now, example, if you take sub-Saharan Africa, 44 countries, out of these 44 countries, only 9 of them will be able to supply 60% of the need of the agricultural potential. So you can imagine if the rest are doing other things. All right. Let's see. The countries that I think we could mention will be Ethiopia. Most of we also think that, oh, Ethiopia has a lot of farming and whatever. Now, actually, it's not like that. Even the Middle East countries are investing a lot in Ethiopia. Ethiopia is never a poor country, even though it's a dry area, but the potential is very huge. We cannot count out Nigeria will be there, and Tanzania. These are the 3 countries, only 3 countries that are going to produce half of the 60% of the total potential of the agricultural output that we need. So you see, the wealth is there. It's up to us for us to identify the opportunities, and then there we go. Now, what are the crops that will lead us to that? So this is where Ethiopia will specialize on a one crop. I'm not saying one for the sake of this talk. I'm talking about the specialized type of crops. Nigeria will have one, and Tanzania will have one. Cocoa and others, those are what we call the plantation crops. We already know them, so I'm not talking about them. So if you look at wheat, looking at the altitude and whatever, you will see that Ethiopia could lead us in wheat production. This is why when you say arid desert or you are semi-arid, don't discount these areas. It's only when you deploy your technology, then only you will know that you can handle the situation. Even if you talk about tropical soils, they also have their problem with acidity. But the way you deal with it is what is going to manifest into your output. Now, if you talk about Nigeria can do very well in cassava. And remember, cassava is the staple food, and cassava is used in different kind of whatever product that you want. If you come to Malaysia, they will not using cassava, they will use sago. So those are the realities that we need to look into. Now, when you talk about maize, this is where Tanzania will come in. The rest will be producing, but when we talk about the champions in Africa, these are the 3 countries. It is not me, but the facts are there for us to verify. Now, if we are talking about that, then the opportunities that we are talking about in going into agriculture, these 3 crops alone should get us to the promised land. Again, this is why if I were to show you the map, you can see for yourselves. Now, what about other crops? This is where other countries will come in. It's so beautiful that you just name the crops and you can find other countries coming in. So this is the issue. So I think that I personally believe in what the president of the African Development Bank is trying to put across. The message is clear, but it is up to us. Now, one thing that I think I've been saying again and again, this is where the technology will come in. Otherwise, it's going to be hot air. It's just going to be a bluff. So we need to have some technological growth. It is not bad. If you look at the kind of, innovations that are going on, just since 2016, the agri-tech within 3 years actually increased by 110%. So you can see the innovativeness across Nigeria, across Ghana, South Africa. You are talking about Kenya and the like. You are talking about Rwanda. So these are the technologies that are coming in. And here, what we can see is there is going to be a possible proliferation of different technologies in Africa in less than a decade. Just as in the colonial period where there was scramble for Africa, there will also be scramble in terms of technological deployment. But it is up to us to have our own and have the control of the technology. What are the examples that I can think about? Those of you who are familiar, we have something called crowdfunding. Those of you in Ghana, it's equivalent to Susu, something like that. So we have funding platforms where they are not going to demand all these kind of collateral security from the banks or whatever. It's a shared belief. It's a platform that you believe in something, you crowd your wealth, and then you go into the agriculture. Even if you don't want to go, you identify the like minds, and then from there you go. So Nigeria is championing this aspect where they have what you call farm crowding. It's a platform where they crowd the funds and then they identify the farmers who have the potential and then they try to get into it. Now, the crowdfunding platform also, we have one in South Africa, but they are focusing on what you call the livestock industry. So that is the beauty where you try to embrace technology or innovations. So here, we also have in Somalia, don't discount these kind of countries. Somalia also has something called AgriFarm. It's also a crowdfunding type of information where you bring the people together and then together you farm, right? Now, businesses in terms of, so here the crowdfunding, there are other businesses that they liaise with. This is what we say agribusiness is very important. They go in terms of collaboration, they pool the financial capital, they identify the small scale holders with the potential. Remember, the future agriculture is going to be on small holders' land. This is what we call future farms, 1 hectare, 3 hectares. It's not going to be 100,000 hectares anymore when you deploy your technology. Remember greenhouse farming, vertical farming. I'm going to talk about all of them very soon. So these are the realities. Now, companies in terms of drone for precision farming are also coming in. And where are they? In South Africa, we have something called aerobotics. We have South Africa aerobotics. Remember, South Africa is very advanced in terms of technology. They build their own cars and then aeroplane engines and whatever. So they also are there. If you go to Ivory Coast, we have what you call Ivorian We Fly Agri. Is there, right? So even when you talk about, when I started, we are talking about preservation, storage and whatever. There are certain companies who are using solar because you know sunshine in Africa, you have a lot, it's abundant. So they are tapping the sunshine into solar energy and then they use them to store and process our crops. And then from there, you also have startups. They are boosting a lot of startups that are going to help us. Now, in terms of digitization, we shouldn't be left behind because if once you are left in digitization, then you are going to have problem. Why? Because if we digitize our systems, then we're going to have massive food transformation. I'm going to show all this. Of course, it's also agricultural related. And even the fishery industry, whether being it a control environment, aquaculture, or you are talking about marine, fishing, those are the things that I think we could also look into. Now, what are the tools? What are the tools that we could use? We are talking about high quality satellite imageries. So these are the things that we need to invest in. We need to invest in artificial intelligence. We also have to look into precision agriculture equipment. We're very precise equipment. We are going to talk about them. And then we also have to go into the big data analytics. You see, we have information overload, but if you have your clouds and you create your scenarios, you develop the apps, you are communicating with the farmers, you are doing predictions for them, climate, soil, crops, diseases. So those are the things. And then of course, mobile devices. Now the mobile industry is a boom area that we could use the mobile devices. You will be at home and you are communicating with your plants and animals in your field. So those are the realities. But the note will be here. These tools actually should be used to increase productivity, but it must be, we must have a sustainable way of doing it. At the same time, we should have agriculture that is resilient. Resilient means that it shouldn't crash at any point in time. It should continue to sustain us. And if possible, it's not only in agriculture, it should be related to other parts of our productivity. Now, if that is the case, what do we see now? I just want to sound a caution here that currently a number of the technologies are already in existence. But of course, some are yet to come and some are on their way. You will see when we get to agriculture 4.0. So we shouldn't be left out. If we are left out this time, I don't think we will ever come back. This is our last chance. We have learned our lessons and we need to move forward. Now, what will be the challenge? The challenge here is if we could get the serious public sector or public and private sectors collaboration, and they are willing to invest massively into agriculture in terms of digital infrastructure and in terms of education and training, that's the only way that we can make it. The rest will all be just talk show, right? Now, can we also say, if assuming we go into agriculture and we are developing our base, can it be another avenue or another source to reverse the unemployment situation in Africa? Unemployment is everywhere in the world, but it depends on the way you look at it. Just like the statement from the Secretary of ANOR, unemployment is a huge area that agriculture could save us, and I'm answering your question. You can see because it may offer a lot of career pathways, and you will be surprised that even if you are an auditor, even if you're a banker, you are qualified to be on board. So what are we trying to say is, what I'm trying to press across is agriculture can actually employ a lot, very, very massively, if we were to reduce our unemployment, whatever. All these political kind of manifesto, today, tomorrow, we give jobs. I'm not talking about, we are talking about long-term jobs. So that could be the one of the long-term jobs. And it is already known. It's a known fact that when you are in agriculture, your future in the long term, if you really know what you are doing, is really, really bright. So we can employ millions. I'll come down again. Now, many careers being in agriculture, forestry, and related areas will contribute to preservation and protection of the environment. So we need agriculture because whether you like it or not, we are all concerned about the greenhouse effect, the global, climate change and whatever. But if we are in responsible agriculture and forestry, that is the only profession that can guarantee the green environment. So let us go now. What are the major careers? I just listed a few. If you are an engineer, you are part of the show. If you are an agronomist, you are there. A soil scientist, you will be there. Animal scientist, crop scientist. So you will see later, everybody is involved. If you're a food scientist, you don't have to go to the field. The food will come to you. You will tell us what to do. Agricultural economics, you are there with your economics. Extension officers, you will be there. Biotechnologists, you will be on board. Horticulturists. So major professions, all of them will be on board. You are talking about what? Auditors, we will need you. Managers, we will need the administrators. You are talking about what we call data analytics, psychologists, we all need you, statisticians. So these are the things, foresters. So it's not only soil, plant, animals. No, everybody, even the botanists, we need you. So these are the professions, more and more and more. So the summary of the whole thing is agriculture welcomes everyone. The doors are open. It is up to you to identify where you fit properly and make it big. Now, clearly, we can say that agriculture can serve as the valley that will absorb a lot of us. So the industrial agriculture will be what we need. Production agriculture, but not medieval agriculture. If you are the one you want to make money, you are welcome. You don't need to be the farm. You don't need to buy a land. You will make your money. So that is how it works. So we are heading to that level. Why am I saying this? Because you can participate without owning a land. And from there, we know, because the fast growing environment of agriculture, you just like crowd farming. You have identified your interests with the farmers and then the intermediaries. So you just pool your resources, you just sit somewhere else, and then you are part of the decision making. If you say we want to grow grains and we want to go organic, you are part of the decision, but you don't have to be involved in the production aspect. So now you can work with your money, no physical contact with the plants or whatever, but through organizations and innovations. Yours is just to hold your whatever. You should have your app, your phone, and whatever. Then you are communicating. Others are doing the work for you. So I give you an example. Like we said, Farm Crowdy in Nigeria. You are talking about Thrive Agriculture. All these things are technological based that you just have to communicate with them. Your money is there. It's like an investment that you are doing, right? Now, the crowdfunders also are able to provide, they match you with the interest people, and then from there we go into farming. You can even detect what food should be produced, right? Therefore, what I can say is companies will provide financial support. They identify the farmers, the local farmers, they share the expertise, they guide them to maximize their yield, at the same time, try to remain efficient. So those are the things. So my note for you here is, if you don't have time, you don't want to own anything, agricultural sector is there. If you want to build a career there, you get it. If you want to go into business and invest, it's there. So that is my story. Now, remember, we can never talk about agriculture without recognizing women. Agriculture in Africa, women have featured prominently in agriculture. It will surprise you to know that approximately 50% of the agricultural labor in sub-Saharan Africa are dominated or has been taken over by the women. And this is very, very clear. So we can't talk about agriculture without women. Now, what is more interesting is they are the cornerstone of African agriculture because 80% of the food is produced by women. So here we can't talk about agriculture saying that only men, but the unsung heroes are the women. This is a fact that we cannot deny. Now, why is this coming up? Because they know how to crowdfund, they know how to bring themselves, and they know how to deal with the situation. So here they are good in agribusiness, especially when they get the support. So significant number of women are participating in the value chain. Sometimes not necessarily they go to the farm and produce, but they could be along the value chain. And you know, back home, our parents, our sisters and whatever, they are involved a lot in the value chain. So those are some of the things, right? Now, so what I can say is, with determination and perseverance that our women have, they are going to make a lot of money. Some are already making a lot of money and some are already being what? Recognized. Just imagine the lady who just decided to plant trees to through reforestation, afforestation, won a Nobel Prize. I think, may her soul rest in peace, I think she's no more. But she won it. I think she's from Kenya, I'm not very sure. So this is an example, a classical example to tell us that we can't talk about agriculture when the women are factored out. So there are vast opportunities that we could talk of, but to achieve this, we need to invest massively, but wisely. That's what I can say. Why? Because let us see an example. If we take sub-Saharan Africa alone and we invest wisely, we will need almost 8 times of the fertilizers that we are using. So it's not about increasing the fertilizer, but what type of fertilizer. So this is where we should be careful. We can go a bit of organic, or we go biological. If you go too much of chemical, then it could be disastrous. Now, the same sub-Saharan Africa may need almost 6 times seeds that we need. Whether you are talking about any type of seed, you talk about grains, you talk about legumes, or whatever, citrus or whatever, we may need 6 times. And these are all going to create opportunities for us. All right. Now, the same sub-Saharan Africa, if we want to develop the storage capacity in terms of perishing of our produce, then we need to invest almost 8 billion. And that is how you cannot talk without money. This is where those of you who want to invest and you don't want to go to the farm, these are some of the investment. And we don't want to depend too much on the governance and whatever. And if you were to talk about sub-Saharan Africa in terms of irrigation, then we might need 65 billion. So it's a huge thing, and the potential too is there. You cannot eat your cake and have it. Either you invest properly or not. So those are the things. But what is the good news? The doors are open. So many sectors are open. But all that we need is, we need money for investment, manpower, expertise, and ideas. The most important, these are the most important things. Otherwise, the blind leads the blind, fall into the ditch. So those are the things. What will be the implication? We will need capital investment, definitely than what we are investing now. All these political talk shows should stop, and then we should deal with realities. If we are really serious, we must have national agenda. We have continental agenda, and not this kind of short political manifestos. Those are not going to help us in any way. So what are some of the examples I have given you all? So we can go. Now, this is a scenario. And even if I were to stop here, I think we should be able to answer the question. But for me to impress you further, let us look at the soil. Because you can never talk about agriculture in Africa without talking about soil. But the most abused kind of resource on the surface of the earth, one of them is the soil. Because soil is a forgiving nature and we take it for granted. You can imagine, look at the functions of soil. I'm not going to go into this. Whether you talk about climate regulation, the soil will play a role. If you are talking about nutrient cycling, the organisms that we are talking about, the soil. What about flood mitigation? Even now, we are looking into a situation where whether we can get the panacea from soil to what? To counteract COVID-19. So there are a lot of pharmaceutical information or resources that are in the soil. You can't build your house without the foundation of the soil as a structure. Your construction materials, where are you going? So on and on and on and on, it doesn't end. But to put it in perspective, just come down to this. Here we have plants, we have human beings, and definitely we have animals. Now, you just look at it, whether you being the plant, you being the animal, you being the human being, you need 18 essential nutrients. Now, all these essential nutrients, most of them are in the soil, except what? Oxygen, carbon, and hydrogen. They are only in the atmosphere, very common, but the rest are in the soil. So you can imagine what is going to happen if we don't take good care of the soil. But the challenge we have in Africa and the rest of the world is soil degradation. Because once you start to degrade the soil, you are losing your nutrients, being they micro or macro. Now remember, the moment you lose your nutrients or the soil quality, you are not going to produce healthy plants, and you will not produce healthy food, being them animals or plants. Therefore, the human itself, the human being will be sick. This is the reason why now we are aware that over 2 billion people in the world are suffering from micronutrient deficiency just because of soil loss. So here, the only way we can make it, if we want to remain healthy, then we must have a sustainable soil management that will translate into healthy soil. The healthy soil translates into healthy food, and of course, it will manifest in our health. To do so, we will have to reduce erosion. We will have to keep the surface of the soil covered as much. This is where Africa has advantage, where you have 60 to 65 uncultivated soils intact. And then, of course, we produce what you call minimum tillage, and we build up organic matter. So those are the things. Now, why did I take my time to talk about this? Because remember, less than 10% of the land that you see on the surface of the earth is soil. So only 10% of the surface of the earth is soil, and you are going to degrade it when it takes almost 2,000 years to form only 2 centimeters of fertile soil. So those are the challenges that we need to understand. And can you imagine 2011 alone, we lost almost 24 billion tons of fertile soils. I'm talking about fertile soils were lost. So you can imagine up to today how much. And this is what is going on everywhere in the world. So these are the realities. So how are you going to have stable food security with this kind of approach? So this is why when it was estimated, how much are we losing every year? We are hitting 490 billion. This is across the world. It's not only in Africa. So we need to be serious here. Every continent will have to be serious. Why is it so? Remember, much as we need the air to survive, we also need the soil to survive. But something that makes it serious is the soil is a non-renewable resource. So that is the problem now. So we don't have a choice. We need to be very specific. Minimum tillage, you only till where you want to till and you leave the rest. This is why future farms are going to be small. We only pick what we want and we don't disturb the rest. It is not by chance that the United Nations and the other parts of the world sat down and came out with these 17, what we call it, sustainable development goals. And amazingly, within these 17, among the 17, 12 of them are related to agriculture. So you can imagine how prominent agriculture features in the world. We cannot just do without it. And one thing that is even interesting is 8 of them are related to soil. So those are the realities that I think we will have to deal with. And this brings me to what we call food security. I'm not sure whether my time is over, but if you want me to stop here, I may do so, but I'll prefer to finish with the food security so that when we break, then we can continue. Dr. Mutaka, am I allowed to do so? Well, when we talk about food security, I put it in a simple way. Where food security is the right the right to have your food. So you might not be impeded. You should be blocked by any physical barriers, social or economic barriers. They shouldn't be there. So it is your right to have the food at any time. If any country has a blockade, consciously or unconsciously, being physical, social, and economic wise, then definitely you are not going to have secure food because you might not have sufficient food. Remember, when we talk about food security, we are not talking about the quantity. We are also talking about how safe it is. Is it nutritious? And can it really meet our dietary requirements and preferences? If I'm forced to eat food or I'm compelled to eat food that I don't want, maybe it's against my cultural norms or it's against my belief, that is not considered food security. So when you take them, you must have a healthy life. So the right to food is what we call food security. It is your right, it is my right. So if I were to summarize food security, you are talking about availability, accessibility, utilization. But something that glue or anchor these 3 pillars will be stability. And remember, if you don't have stability, you will never have any nutritional outcome. And how do you talk about stability in this kind of environment where your soil is being degraded? How are you going to have that kind of stability? So these are the realities. So in this environment, you don't talk about food security, right? So it's a national threat and it can be a continental threat. So these kind of things, never can we worry. I'm very worried in my own country with all these galamsey and all sorts of things going on. How are we going to guarantee food security? So those are some of the things. You can see clearly this will not help us. This is why we need to be serious and then have effective management of soil. So all these stories that I talk about Africa, whatever, if we don't have effective management of the soil, then we are going nowhere. Of course, we have soilless agriculture. I'll touch on them. But the reality is we cannot do without soil. This is why when you talk about soil management in terms of vis-a-vis food security, the availability, the question you should ask yourself is whether we are going to have enough. So what kind of management skills do we have in terms of soil management? Accessibility, we are just talking about, can you really get the food and can you afford it? Very simple. If no, we don't have food security. Acceptability. Here we are talking about the food and the way the food is delivered. Is it against your cultural norms? Is it against your religious belief? Is it acceptable, appropriate? If no, you don't have food security. Adequacy, here we are talking about the food and its source. Again, it has a whole lot of issues. So the safe, how safe is this? And how sustainable is it? If any one of these is not there, we need to take action. And I think the 5 A's, this is what we mean by the 5 A's. This is why you need to understand what we call agriculture 1.0 until agriculture 1.4. So again, I'm not very sure whether I have to go in, but I think if you allow me, I will be continue unless you stop me. So let us look at this. Last time I gave a lecture, and to my surprise, I was asked what is agriculture 1.0. This up to 1.4. I don't want to take chances. So let me take this time to explain. One, when we were having this agriculture 1.0, we were talking about this kind of manual type of agriculture, where we used to use animals and simple tools. That was the time of what we call the medieval to the a little bit of the modern. Then we came down to what we realized that it was not helping us because we fixated in what? Subsidies, what we call it, sorry, I'm not able to pronounce the word, but it's more or less a hand to mouth type of what we call agriculture. So here we are talking about, then from there we came to what we call machinery. So the machinery here, we are talking about where we started introducing tractors, agrochemicals, and then improved seed technology. Subsistence farming, that was the word I was trying to get. So now, then from there, we realized that that one also was not helping it. This was between the 19th and the 20th century. Here below the 20th century is 1.0. Then when we went to 20th century and 21, then we started talking about high-tech sensors. You are talking about cloud farming, you are talking about precision farming, Internet of Things came in. So now we are also still moving, but we are moving into 4.0, where we realized that here, 3.0, we were producing a lot, but we were not being responsible. So here we are talking about demographics. You are talking about population, because population boom and whatever in terms of climate change. We are talking about that food waste, remember? And then we are also talking about scarcity of resources. So if I were to walk you through, this is an example of what we call the agriculture 4.0 in the 1920s. Those are the activities, manual you produce for yourself. If you don't want to, you only produce for your family, subsistence. I mean, you don't even think of going beyond your family. So those are the things. So it was very localized and mixed. You see, this is what I was telling you, the women participation. Then when we were adopting locally kind of local farming, we call it gardening or type of this, then it became labor intensive. We are talking about small scale, and it's diversified based on your needs. This is where you're talking about mixed farming and all sorts of things. So then from there, we start to realize that we can go to 2.0. And when you talk about 2.0, this is where agrochemicals, like I said, the machinery, and then we try to improve our efficiency at the expense of the soil and then the environment. This is where we also have our chemical fertilizers, pesticides started to come in, and then to boost soil fertility and productivity. By later on, we realized that we are not that being smart like we thought. Then from there, we were also thinking of, we became conscious of human health, environmental pollution, biodiversity, crop quality, and health. So then we started developing more interest in other things. This is where the birth of agriculture 3.0 came in, where we try to use state-of-the-art technology so that we will be efficient, we reduce labor, and make efficient use of agrochemicals on site-specific basis. So those were the times that we started, and now we try to advance them. So that is 3.0. And then this is where we have the satellite communication, remote sensing to look at individual spatial variation and temporal variation. So if you look at here, why is this color different from the rest? So that from there we do site-specific management. Now, this is where then we brought the sensors, you have your softwares, Internet of Things, they all came in just to, one, to prevent, two, to mitigate, last is to correct, but the emphasis is more to prevention. Then we realized that as we became efficient, we were producing more and we were becoming irresponsible. Therefore, we started to generate a lot of food waste and whatever. So this is where 4.0 is talking about optimization of resources. So these are some of the waste that we are talking about. And this amount alone is equivalent to $1 trillion that could have been used to feed the other parts of the world. Later on, I'll show you that almost 900,000 tons of waste are produced, which could have been used to feed people that we are not really trying to do. So here, remember, I did talk about post-harvest losses and whatever in Africa. It's not only in Africa. This is now in the whole world. We've started having the problem. And the whole thing was that when that time, we were not having efficient way of disposing the waste. So we had the landfills. So when you have the landfills, you dump them in. We forgot that we're going to have anaerobic decomposition. So then we started realizing that we were discharging greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide. So then we had to pull back again. So we were talking about climate change and global warming. Then we were also seeing that if we don't change the scenario, we're going to have imbalanced access of food. So food security will become a problem by 2030. So this is going to hinge on population density, where by 2030, we're going to hit 8.5, and 2050, we're going to hit 9.7 to 10 billion. This can cause a huge problem. Then from here, then we started thinking again. I don't want to believe that our next target will be 5.0. So then the focus will be demographic, population booming. How do we control and how do we have these kind of things liaise in climate change and whatever? And then we were also looking into scarcity of resources. Remember now, scarcity of resources, with the exception of a little bit of Africa and Asia who can boast of these kind of resources, but we will have to also optimize them. And then food waste. So 4.0, these are the core, the focus. So we are still within 4.0, but at the early stage. So if I were to summarize what 4.0 is, it's just that you harness the technology, the new methods, so that you make maximum use of your resources and come out with outstanding resources, outstanding output in terms of agronomic efficiency. You are talking about economic, and then you are talking about environmental efficiency. So if I were to give you the example, this is it. You see, this is where we call the agronomic efficiency, because all the input, the resources that you are using per hectare or whatever, you must make optimum use of it for you to boost up your yield and you decrease your inputs. So this is what we call agronomic efficiency. And this part deals with what you call environmental efficiency, where you only use what is necessary. So every input counts. So by then you will be able to reduce whatever your fertilizers, your carbon footprint or whatever. So this is the environmental aspect, you become sustainable. But the economic aspect deals with technology enhancement, where you are able to use your technology in a way that whatever you produce has some maximum returns. So this is what we call socioeconomic drive of the whole 4.0. So that is 4.0. But to do this, there are three strategies. One, to produce differently from what we used to produce. That means that you need to chart a new way of techniques of producing. So now you see agriculture is becoming advanced and very beautiful now. So here, the next one could be how you bring in the new technologies, produce and connect the consumers. So this is exactly what crowd farming, and then crowdfunding. We have crowd farming, crowdfunding. So all of them are coming together to bring the farmer and the consumer together. And then the next one is what we talk about, cross technologies, multidisciplinary approach, nanotechnology coming into agriculture. aviation coming into agriculture, the pharmaceutical. So these are the strategies that are being developed. So if you take one, we are now talking about soilless agriculture. So these are the new ways. We will talk about them very soon. Now we are even talking about algae feedstock kind of agriculture, bioplastics. So we are not going to talk about petrochemical type of industry. We're talking about degradable things. And the other aspect that we are going into will be what you call sea water farming. And we are talking about desert agriculture. So these are the beauty of what we call agriculture 4.0, but with respect to the strategies. So now, if you look at the algae feedstock that we are talking about, this I'll talk about them later. Algae bloom is just too much of nitrogen and then phosphorus and other airborne activities and whatever. So we'll talk about that erosion, runoff, going to the water bodies. So they create this kind of algae. So what people are thinking now is this becomes a menace, but we should turn problem into opportunity. So we use this as a feed for animals. And even not only the livestock industry, it can also be used for the fishery industry. Now, in terms of biodegradable plastics, that means you can recycle as a fertilizer in terms of compost, and the cycle goes on. Instead of plastics that can stay in the environment for 400 years. So those are some of the things. So it's going to come a time we don't need spoons in metallic, stainless steel or whatever, plastics, but they are going to be in terms of biodegradable materials. And then this is what we call sea water farming. Areas that are inundated, lowland area, they are close to the sea, or we are finding out whether we can use the sea water to produce other crops. Remember, the sea water is high in sodium and a little bit of calcium and a bit of potassium. So we're going to see how we could substitute calcium with sodium, and at the same time, how do you produce and protect the salinity of the what? Of the sea water. So you need to have a hardy crop that can withstand. So this is what we call sea farming. And then when you go to the desert, we are talking about desert agriculture, where through you are talking about you deal with the genome of your material. You are talking about biological system, breeding programs and whatever to come out with this kind of plant that could withstand the desert environment. So these are the challenges that are going on that we're going to transform agriculture 4.0. So what are those that we have achieved so far? The second strategy, we have achieved vertical farming, urban farming, we are achieving them. What is ongoing will be the genetic modification, 3D printing, and we are also talking about cultured meat and whatever. So here we are talking about not too much of animal, but we can mimic and then we get it. A classical example is when you have a very good breeding program, you can see the conventional way within 20 days, they are already rotting. But a good breeding program should be able to give us the shelf life of the vegetables of your material could be extended further. So these are the beauty, kind of technology or beautiful things that we are doing in the agriculture that could excite some of you, especially the technologies. We really mean business. For GMO, I will be silent on this because I have my personal bias and then I have some sentiment about it. So the debate will not stop if I go through it. So these are some of the cultured meat that we are talking about. The issue, the Muslims or whatever, definitely there will be halal aspect of it. I think all these ethical things have been taken care of. So those are some of the things. Why are we going into this? Because I'm going to show you very soon. You will see that the livestock industry is the one that is polluting in the environment even than the crop industry. So we would like to limit those kind of things by reducing them. So this is what I'm trying to say. If you look at here, this is the animal source. In terms of greenhouse effect, you can see clearly the animal source is the one that is causing a lot in terms of agriculture. But when you talk about plant-based, they are just little. So those are this is one of the motivations to go into this kind of culture. And then you are talking about 3D. 3D can be used for processing, for farming and production and whatever, your equipment and whatever. So these are the areas that I think the technology meet with the agronomists, and then we could go into it. So here, what have you achieved here? We have achieved the drone technology, data analytics, precision farming. Of course, Internet of Things is there. But what we are struggling with now will be nanotechnology. Of course, food sharing and then crowd farming is still coming up. And interestingly, countries like Nigeria, South Africa, Ivory Coast, and whatever, they are into it. So those are the things that I think they are very useful for us. And then the blockchain and artificial intelligence are there. I think I will stop here because I've got some sort of signals. So I'm going to stop here for us to break, and then I will get to the last part of the presentation. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Dr. Muktaka, back to you. Dr. Muktaka? Hello?
Yeah, sorry, Prof.
Are you trying to alert me?
So we have 5 minutes more to the break.
You mean I have 5 minutes more?
Yeah.
Okay, then let me finish this part. Okay, so now let's go on. If we were to talk about the human population, you remember I talked a little bit as far as Africa is concerned. So here, what we will have to look into is the global population vis-a-vis aging and see where the youth will come in. So we know that by 2023, the world population will hit 8 billion. And what will be the implication? The implication here is the advanced countries, their population already stabilized. You can see clearly the blue part stabilized. But we in the developing countries, we are the ones who are really pushing the population boundaries. And we can see that the green will be for the developing countries. So if we were to add them together, then by 2050, we're going to have almost 9 billion. We are heading to 10 billion. So what do we do now? What is going to happen here is we are going to have pressure on agriculture. Of course, it could be an opportunity depending on how you look at it, but it could also be a problem because when there's population density pressure on soil, then we're going to have problems with soil quality. That is why we need to have a bold way of looking at things. If only in Africa we're able to manage the soil very well, then that itself should eradicate poverty. So if we look at it closely, I'm reminding you, we can't do it without technology. We can only fight poverty. One of the means we have, it has proven that our natural resources are not helping us. Of course, human factor coming in, but if we can be serious with agriculture, then we should be able to break the cycle. That being the case, why this bold statement? I have to remind you, remember we are saying that 60% or 65% of the unemployed could be employed by agriculture. And then the GDP that it will be contributing to the African situation will be 32%. And definitely with the adoption of technology, so if our agriculture is technological driven, like I said, our 1 trillion is there for us to rake, right? So that is the issue. So again, coming down, we can see the distribution is very clear that everywhere we can do, but certain countries can do it better. But something that I would like to stress here is organic farming. Africa is far, far behind. I can understand this because some of the areas are not well tapped. You can see most of the countries. You can see clearly that the organic farming is very, very low. I take Ghana as an example. You only have 22,276 hectares. And Ghana is becoming among one of the best in organic farming. Of course, you talk about South Africa is there or whatever. So it's very low. Even look at South Africa. It's just 50,000 hectares. This is why I'm trying to say that if we design our own green, revolution, that means that you can go a lot into organic agriculture, and that is where the money is going to come from because the world attention now is organic farming. So with this, we know definitely that we have the land, we can produce a lot of money from them, but only if we adopt technology and we are willing to invest. Once we invest, we are not only going to produce, but we are going to create jobs. Almost 8 million new jobs could be created, whether we like it or not. Now, the next part will be when we talk about specialization, look at the untapped potential of Africa. You can see clearly that none of the sub-regions This is West Africa. You are talking about South Africa, East Africa, North Africa. None of them. The most serious part is even South Africa. This is the potential of agriculture in South Africa, the output, and this is what we have. Look at West Africa. This is our potential. This is what we have. And then look at the central part, and then look at the northern part, and the Horn of Africa, and the worst of it is what we call, I think this is Madagascar or whatever, I'm not sure. So this is it. So you see, we are not doing very well because we are not tapping into it. This is why the president has the courage to make that statement. So my point to you is, do we need the world or the world need us? This is the question I put to you. So again, who are the countries? The most prominent ones could be, the darker ones will be Nigeria. You are talking about Burundi, Uganda, and then whatever. Ghana will come in, but not in the dark regions. So those are the areas. But generally, the potential is there. We are not tapping. Now, the other aspect, human resource, is something that we can liaise with agriculture, because if you look at the world population, Africa ranks #2 vis-a-vis Asia. But the density of the distribution is what is important, and how you tap that kind of potential. So if you look at it, we are 1.2 billion, but we are less densely populated vis-a-vis Asia, Europe, and South America. So if you take 65 people per square mile, which is not really densely populated. So it's either we use it or it becomes useless, and others will come and develop the area for us. So if we talk about that, what do I mean by that? The only way to tap in is to capitalize on the youth, because Africa is considered the youngest continent on the surface of the surface in this world. So here, look at it carefully. The youngest continent is Africa, with average age of what? The average age is 18. If you look at every continent now, let's go continent by continent. Africa, the average age will be 18. The closest will be Asia, and you are talking about South America. You can see clearly that the North America is a little bit aged. You can also see that Australia, and then Europe is the oldest. So we can see. So now it is up to us whether we want to use the youth in the right way or else. So the human capital is there. If we don't capitalize on it, it will backfire on us. Now let us go into the growing. You see here, when you see the population of the African youth below 25 has increased by 51%. But when you go to South Asia, you can see rather the population in terms of youth has decreased by 41%. Now, if you come to Southeast Asia, East Asia and Oceania, the population in terms of youth is declining by 32%. If you go to, let's say, Europe and North America, you can see the population is stabilizing, but the youth is very low. So here, the advantage here is whether we want to take the advantage and empower the youth to go into meaningful agriculture, or it backfires on us. So if we are serious, we need to consider the entry barriers. What are the entry barriers? We need to be serious with agriculture. It must be introduced seriously at the primary level. So primary education must look into agriculture seriously, not only in theory. We must also look into it in the secondary schools. Not only you get to Form 3, Form 1, Form 2, Form 3, at Form 4, Form 5, you stop it. We need to be very serious. If they are going to specialize, not everybody can go to the university. They must go to the vocational institutions where technical skills in terms of agriculture, any area, should be taken seriously. You don't go there and learn too much of theory. It must be practicalized. And then definitely when you get to the tertiary environment also, definitely those of us who go into agriculture must practicalize it. You don't go to agriculture and think that you never go to the field, you learn from the books, what are you going to do? So we are also responsible. Our leaders must fix themselves. We also have to fix ourselves, and together we move on. Now, how do you do this? We don't want to introduce people with less knowledge, basic knowledge in agriculture. So we need to know that when you go into agriculture, you are accumulating data and you translate data into information. Of course, that information should be knowledge. And once you understand that knowledge and you understand agriculture, then you are growing in wisdom. You are advancing the agriculture. So we don't have only the illiterates, those who don't know much about agriculture, excuse me, to say they are the one that we want to depend on. It cannot be. You cannot eat your cake and have it. And then we also have to have some thinking skills. When you get into agriculture, it's a business and it's an expertise. So if it has some sort of thinking, you need to think whether it's going to be critical, analytical, concrete, or whatever, convergent, divergent. We need to deploy every kind of thinking to make us stay aloof. These are very, very important. You don't just go and sleep and go to the farm and then you want to reap. You reap what you sow. So abstract and all these kind of thinking skills must be developed. How do we develop them? Right from the primary school, tertiary education, or whatever, teacher, a technical and vocational institute. All these things should be introduced for us to make a breakthrough. Right. Now, getting to this point, wherever you are developing your skills, then we need to teach them to be curious. Not only yes, 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 without even be curious in looking at things. Creativity must be there, of course, open-minded must be there. Ethics will be very, very important because you are going to deal with the environment, you're going to deal with a whole lot of things. So ethics must be there, you must be honest. We must have logical thinking and intuition. Intuition means you must be forward-looking, you must have that kind of premonition. So you don't have to be told all the time like a robot. So we need to get into those kind of aspects. And at the national and continental level, we will really have to have a plan. So we must have agricultural plan, not political manifesto plan, because we are talking about generation upon generation. This is why we have to be very, very serious. What kind of plans are we putting in place vis-a-vis, modern farming or smart farming? We should never put agricultural business or agribusiness on the bottom line. It must feature prominently, and then we can also look into favorable agricultural policies. What are the policies that will really ginger or that will, cushion some of the expenses that we will invest, we will put in agriculture? Don't be a boundary. Don't create a boundary to deter others. And definitely we must intensify our research and development areas. And then I share a very simple example. This is one of the agricultural policies in Malaysia. And you can see, if you read number 3 in particular, it's very interesting. And because they have a plan, for instance, securing the country food supply, definitely. So it's a whole long-term kind of information that they have to. And then you see, they are emphasizing on technology in terms of agro-food sector, and they are liaising it with what? 4th industrial revolution. You get what I'm saying? And then one thing that is more important here is they conduit it in what we call the sustainable development goals. And the last part will be, they are talking about high value crops. So you see, Malaysia is good in oil palm. They are moving away again and again. I'll show you. So this is the way. You must have that kind of futuristic kind of thinking and have a plan that even one government after another government will be able to continue. So those are some of the things that I can share. Now, to end it all, for us here, we take it seriously. I'm not talking theory. We involve every stage of our students or every stage of what we do, even to the level of discussing with people who matters in the industry. We will try to involve them so that they will appreciate what is agriculture and how best they could contribute. And you can see here, we are even at the dinner time, you are dealing with big people. They come in and they must also learn. This is how we should bring our young ones for them to be exposed. It's not only in textbooks. And definitely you can see how excited they are. They enjoy what they do because they believe in what they do. So there is no like it's a dirty game or it's an area that has no value. This is how we should create the impression about the mental picture for agriculture. And these are some of the students. And then here you can see, even in the forestry, people are willing to go. And then once they are interested, they develop their own skills, they have their own way of producing their own technologies. They are proud to share. So we need to involve them, let them be proud and communicate with the industry or the stakeholders so that you get feedback, then you produce what is market driven, what is important for the society. That's the only time you make an impact. So you can see them everywhere they are. They try to show, and you can see how beautiful it looks like, excited to show what they know. And these are some of the exhibitions, and then the what do you call it, the outreach programs that we try to do. This is Dr. Lee. I think now he's in the University of Ghana. He's a lecturer, and these are former vice chancellor, and then these are some of our former students. And you can see clearly that this is how we should expose them, the youth, if you want them to go into that. These are some of the products that they produce, and you can see clearly what they are showing. So these are some of the things, winning awards here and there upon awards, and then so much of exhibitions, and you are getting to the public for them to know. So here you see how massively we involve the youth. For I doubt whether we are doing this back home. So we need to really, really change the way, and definitely you need to engage with people who matter. So here we are talking about policy makers, ministers at the highest level. So those are some of the pictures that I can show you. This was the former Minister of Higher Education. So people are serious here, they mean business. So we also have to be serious. And these are some of the ministers. These are, I think, the Minister for Environment related to research and development. So these are some of the things that I think we will have to be very serious. And whatever you do, you need to be very honest with what you are doing. You don't bluff around, you don't go and say things that you've never done before. Ethical issues. So this is the Deputy Chief Minister for Sarawak, I think the second number 2. So we can see clearly, and the former Vice Chancellor, they're expecting our technologies. And then I think this, that is Dr. Latifa, I think one of our researchers was also here. Then we also, it's not only talk about in the laboratories and whatever, we also go to the field, you do consultancy, you train farmers and let them know the technology, send it to them, you need to get to them. And then even you go to the localities and then demonstrate to them. This is what we call technology transfer. You are talking about method demonstration. So all these things must be done in seriousness. So we have the strategies of developing them. So these are some of the farmers that we could share, and then a number. So it's not only in the farm also, sometimes we must have a strategy. You can engage the farmer informally, even at home, whilst eating or discussing in not a very non-serious or non-formal environment. It also works a lot. So from our experience, these are some of the approaches that we'll be using. And we are also Chamber of Commerce, those in the business environment. We also give them public lectures, and for them to see what is going on. And that is where you build a rapport. So it's very inclusive, you know, it's very, very inclusive. So those are some of the things. So if you do research and you just hang them, it doesn't go anywhere. The impact is what we are talking about. These are the industrial players. We are talking about multinational companies. You are dealing with them at a higher level. Get some research grant. Let them understand what you want to do and how do they sponsor you. So these are some of the things that I think we also go into exhibitions where we compete here and there and then see. And these are some of the things that will really, really sell your product and your technology. So ladies and gentlemen, let me stop here. And then we give a break, and then I'm going to finish the last part. Then we will open for questioning. Thank you very much, Dr. Latifa. I'm sorry, Dr. Mutaka, back to your phone.
Okay, thank you so much, Prof. We have a 5 minutes break, Prof.
Yes,
because
please.
of the time. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, Prof. There. Prof here. We can resume.
Hello. Yep, Dr. Mutaka, did I hear you?
Yeah, we can resume. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. All right. So then let's move on. If we talk about access to food, we all know we need to eat. But unfortunately, from the basic human food pyramid, we do know that we need carbohydrate more, followed by vegetables. We are talking about source of proteins, but we need layers of fat. But unfortunately now, instead of building what we call food pyramid, we are rather building what we call waste pyramid. And we can see clearly that food waste is even going to be more and more to the level that it can even feed almost getting to 900 million people, which is very unfortunate. Now, if we were to collect the food waste in terms of how the food waste pollute the environment, then we are going to be number 3 in the world. Just look at it. The first, I'm talking about greenhouse effect. China is number 1, followed by the United States. We are talking about India number 3, and then Russia number 4. But if we take our food waste and we also, not being careless, we don't process them, or then we are going to be number 3. So food waste alone is number 3 polluter of the environment. So you can see that we are not being responsible. That's why I said if we are going to agriculture, then we need to be ethical, and then we have to have some honesty. So if we were to place them, then it means that number 1 now become China. Example, look at carbon dioxide equivalent, US number 2, then our food waste will be number 3 after. Then we have India. So that means that we are not doing well. So this food waste issue is not only in Africa, but it's a global issue. That's why you can see here, 25% to 30%. I'm saying this because I'm going to show you an example where we use waste to produce in a different way. So in agriculture where we use it. So here, this loss, can you imagine if we are talking about just the losses only from 2010 to 2016? And then remember, we are talking about greenhouse effect. So anthropogenic kind of emission is almost 10%. So this is really not good for us. So if we were to take individually per week, if we were to quantify the food waste in terms of money, then you are contributing, you are causing food waste that costs us $28 per week. And I am also doing that. And then from there, if we really talk about the food that is edible, and then we just peel, we take some and throw the rest, is 40%. So this is where we have the kitchen waste and all sorts of things. And the ones that are not touched at all, those that you keep at home, you put in your freezer, your freezers and whatever, they are all part of the problem. So in terms of inefficiency in food preservation, inefficiency, being careless, overproducing, overeating, so these are the things. But the most serious part is, if we are talking about 1.3 billion, most of them are cereals and vegetables. This is why I took my time to talk about Africa, because we take a lot of cereals, we take a lot of vegetables, and this is a global issue. So how do we minimize this or reduce this, and the rest, how do we utilize them? Those are the things that I will be talking about very soon. So these are the waste everywhere. But this waste that you see is just the tip of the iceberg, because that is what you see. So the cost will be like, if let's say if you were to be the producer, the one who is producing the food, this is the cost. You get it? And if we were to talk about retailers, the outlets, the excess, the waste, this will be the cost. Now, what we don't see, if the nature was to, if nature were to bill us, this will be the bill. So you can imagine how irresponsible we are. So this is where I said in Africa, we don't want to repeat the green revolution, but we should adopt our own way to be very, very efficient and remain afloat. Because fundamentally, we have run away from what we say, produce less and eat less. But here we are producing more and we are eating less. So that being the case, I show you a classical example where together with our team, the student who led this, his name is Kevin. So his PhD work was to work on how we use fermented plant juice. So these are the waste, all the waste that we see around. Some of the things that I just show you, talk about tapioca, you are talking about spinach, all this waste. So what we did was we developed what we call a plant fruit juice. So we produce a juice from this kind of waste, just like fruit juice or whatever. So we also produce something like that. So from here, we use them because we wanted to go organic. Now we took some of the waste products like the papaya, pumpkin, all these kind of fruit things and produce another source of what we call fruit juice. So here we wanted to use this as a way of recycling, and then we produce what we call natural farming in black pepper. So that is what we did. And this is what has been going on so far. You can see clearly that you can use other modern technologies to measure the morphology, the physiology, and all sorts of things. So this is what we've been doing, and this is the outcome. So you see from waste to product. So these are some of the things that I think if we are talking about Africa, you must go something natural or you must go something organic. So this is more to organic, where we try not to use chemicals. We are talking about organic based, meaning carbon and hydrogen based materials. And when you do this also, whatever you produce, some of these things, you should question yourself, do you have microorganisms, friendly microorganisms, so that when they get to the soil, they improve the soil quality or they break down and produce nutrients? So we realized that, yes, there are a number of microorganisms that we could get from the product. That means that it's biological. So those are the things that I would like to highlight. Now, in terms of water scarcity, we will have to be a little bit careful because the world is having problem with water. And we can see the scenario is Africa will have some water, Asia will have a lot of water. But as time goes by and we don't manage our water resources, the scenario that is predicted will look like this. So you see there will be shrinkage. I mean, there will be some sort of diminishing water. So this is where we have to go organic. We have to avoid any kind of chemical kind of agriculture where that we are going to pollute the environment, and the greenhouse gas warming will come in, and then we're going to have effect on the rain. So we need to be very careful here when we get in. Whether we like it or not, we're going to have water scarcity in terms of water pollution. So we are all responsible in the way. This is not only one continent, it's going to cut across every continent. So we need to be very practical in the way we do things. So if I was to stress a bit, you can see diarrhea alone, almost getting to 1 billion people suffer from diarrhea every year. And out of the, the global water that we have, only 5.2 billion people have clean water. The rest, no. And if you look at here, 2 billion people will have their water contaminated with feces. And if you talk about lead contamination alone, in the United States, it's about 21 million. And even if we talk about US, 1 out of 4 will not have good drinking water. You can imagine the rest of the world. So these are the realities that I think we need to be very really off. And then of course, if we are very irresponsible in the way we do our agriculture, then we're going to have algae bloom, and then that is really not a good sign of good, nutrient input. We cannot also run away from temperature. So you see, that is why when we do organic farming, we could reduce this kind of, increase in global temperature. So if I were to show you what I want to highlight here is, we all thought that when the global warming goes on, let's say when the temperature of the environment increase, we all thought that it's the ocean that is going to be warmed. But now we have realized that actually the soil or the land will be heated 5 times. So here, if let's say the global environment, the temperature increases by 2 to 2.5, that means that the soil temperature will increase by 5 times. Then we're going to have 10 degrees. If that happens, what is going to happen in the soil and the water resources will be affected. Now, for us to reverse this is why we need organic farming, where you can build in a lot of organic matter. So otherwise, this effect is going to have a very, very serious problem on the world agriculture and its food production. This is why I'm advocating for Africa to channel the kind of resources they have in terms of organic farming or biological farming instead of chemical-based farming. Otherwise, we are going nowhere. By the way, all is not lost. If Africa were to go into this, then we need to adopt what we call climate smart farming. So you don't go by the ordinary way. What do we mean by climate smart farming? Here, you just deploy, you have the information. We all know what we call the cloud. You get what I'm saying? So when you have the cloud, it means that you have a lot of data through data analytics. So what we have to do now here, of course, you have your platforms. So this platform, all that you need is to have data that are related to, let's say, rainfall, pests, soil, you see, plant quality. So once we put them in that kind of maps or platforms, then from there you will have to develop. This is why you see most of the climate smart kind of agriculture, they have apps. So that these apps also is linked to the data information. So once they have the app, now you will be communicating with the farmer. So every farmer, let's say I want to grow rice. Rice has its own specific requirements. So once those specific requirements are run, it will give you the predictions. So once you have the prediction, it can tell you when are you going to, when do you have to water? When are you going to have drought? When are you going to have, let's say, like a pest infestation? So it will tell you all these things. So the farmer will get ready and notified. And then from there, if there's going to be drought, what do you do? What are the irrigation measures? So this is what we call climate smart. But climate smart also could mean that you can have resilient kind of crops that are a bit drought tolerant. So those are some of the things. In rice, they have kind of this kind of things. So these are some of the things that we need to go into. This is where the breeding programs will be very important. And of course, like I said, if you are talking about climate smart type of agriculture, you don't have a choice. Maybe we have drought and whatever, but we have the seawater. So how do we make use of the seawater? That is what we call the sea farming. And then, of course, like I said, if you go to the desert areas also, of course, the plant will have to adapt to the situation. So those are what we call climate smart. So here you look at the climate based on the platform and also what are the crops and how resilient they will be. And even what will be the soil quality and what will be the buildup of organic material. Those are the things that we will have to look into. So now it's also becoming common. You have your own smartphones and whatever. All that we need is for you to be able to what? You should be communicating on the farm with all the what? If you're talking about your implement, if you are talking about your spraying of your organic pesticides, remember the word is organic. Or if you want to fertilize or you want to irrigate or whatever, you can communicate. That's why we have the planning, control, and monitoring system. So because you are dealing with this kind of connectivity, they call it Internet of Things. And then, of course, you have your notepad, the same thing, or whatever. So it's becoming very easy. So then, if you want to really, really go to the land, then we don't have a choice. We have to have what you call integrated organic farming. I will show you one very soon. So basically, what you are trying to do is up to you. Whether if, let's say, like you decide to use livestock, are you going to use cattle? Are you going to use sheep, goat, or whatever? Is up to you, depending on the scenario and the situation. The basic idea is you integrate them to produce organically. So the organic matter and whatever should be coming from the animal. So once you get it, you get your yield, you harvest. Part of this goes to the animal to bring the health together. So in terms of if you are interested in dairies or whatever, milk and whatever, then you can do so. Of course, it is the cattle or the animal also will have some sort of waste. Then you reprocess the waste and then you can use the waste to what? To farm your land. This is what we call integrated. It's just a simple type. There are different types. But what I want to emphasize here is the concept of organic farming is simple. One is to avoid chemicals. So whatever we talk about chemical, we are not talking about mineral. We are talking about chemical-based material. So, but when you say organic, we are talking about organic-based means you have more carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. This is why compost, organic matter is considered as organic. If you are going to use microbes, then that becomes biological. So that is one thing. So natural resources input will be there. And then when you talk about biological, remember diversity. And then from here, if you are talking about your nutrients, are you going to use chemical fertilizers or organic fertilizers? So those are some of the things. And of course, you must think about the environment, the pests. Are you going to use chemical pests or you are going to use natural control? I'm going to show you very soon. Or you are going to use organic pesticides. So those are the things. So to summarize it all, we can say that if you go organic, we are interested in how you maintain the quality of the soil fertility and then how do you reduce your input. And at the same time, how do you optimize your resources? I'm going to talk about precision agriculture very soon. And of course, how do you avoid pollution? And then how do you produce quality food at the end of the day? This is what we call food security. So then the only thing is when you
Yes,
talk about,
sorry, Prof.
yes,
Yeah, 10 minutes more, okay?
I cannot finish within 10 minutes, sorry. I may
Okay.
need 20 minutes, sorry, all right?
Okay, all right.
So now I just show you an example of integrated farming, and then this is what we are doing now. The idea here now is to increase farmers' rice income, and then here to increase, of course, the yield would translate into socioeconomic income, and then we are talking about organic in terms of inputs, and then we are also talking about the ecological friendly way and then the environmental friendly way. So this is an example. Remember, I told you that you can use biological means to control pests and whatever. So this plant is called Tunera. You can see, so this is one of our adopted area. This is our farmer, and these are the agencies. So these are the things that we are planting around the whole paddy fields to repel, insects and other things. So here, this plant is a host for what we call farm friends. Farm friends could be this kind of insects or whatever. Normally they will attract insects that will be able to fight other kind of non-beneficial interests. Enemies. So we call them farm enemies. And then of course, by so doing, you don't apply chemical pesticides. And then we are talking about biological agriculture because you are using biological means. At the end of the day, you are not using chemicals, so the carbon footprint doesn't come in. So these are our farm friends. So when you plant such a plant, they will be attracting these kind of insects and whatever. So they are the ones that are going to be the predators on our farm enemies. So these are some of the things that we are doing now. We just started, I think, just 1 year now. So these are some of the things. And then the pond that you see here, we are also growing fish. So we are talking about integrated farming. This is what we are doing currently. So let me show you what we have done so far. Tunera rice fish farming program, integrated farming. So what we are doing now is, the idea now is we want to reduce chemical fertilizer, and then that be the case so that the plant could be a little bit okay. We also want to reduce weed, at the same time reduce weeding and then weedicides. And then we are also thinking about fish will be able to work on the insects, rats, and then we are talking about golden snail is a big problem in the rice plantation, where at the early stages they try to destroy the rice. So we don't want to use pesticides. So this is what we are doing. So this is what we call the golden snail, and that is what is not good for us. So here you need to select a good type of fish that can deal with that kind of situation. So we selected catfish and tilapia, because if you take, for instance, tilapia in particular, normally they are able to repel their smell, repel rats, and you know rat is a big problem in rice cultivation. So those are the things that I think we are doing so far. And then you can also harvest what we call it, the fish, and then sell at the same time for us to get some income. So that's what we are doing. And normally the weight will be about 300 to 500 kg. Now, what I want us to note is the idea now here is we just want to improve the rice production. We are talking about socioeconomic efficiency of the farmers, at the same time environmental efficiency. So this is what we are doing now, and you can see this is how you set it's more or less like a mini kind of aquaculture or whatever. So those are some of the things that so far we are dealing with. This is the plant, the one that I said will be repelling the insects and then the rats and whatever. So these are the latest thing that we are going. So the fish pond will be here, and then the things are going on. So these are some of the examples, and then you can see the rice field growing very well. This is the latest that I can show you. I just got them yesterday. So these are some of the beautiful things that we are doing. It's practical. This is not by theory. The next one I'll share with you is what we call dark and then rice farming. We also have a session where some of the farmers are using dark at the same time to control what we call golden snail, apple snail, at the same time also fertilizing the farm. So that is what we have. One farmer, where we adopted, and we realized that for them to control this kind of snail, they need almost $2,500 per growing season, which is very, very expensive. So we didn't want to go chemical. So here, when we tried this, we realized that we could reduce the whole thing without using chemical fertilizer, pesticide, between 90 and 95. In fact, this one was even published in the national newspapers. And then I'll show you the farmer very soon. So of course, the dark will also fertilize this, what they call the rice field. And then we realize that what we are doing now, the farmer is able to earn about $80 per week from the dark eggs. So those are some of the things. So this is how we set up a different dark area, and then we rear them. Remember, you are not going to keep the dark permanently. They go in for a while and then they will come back, maybe 3 or 5 hours, and then they will come back. So this is what we are doing now. So this is the side income for the farmer. This is the farmer. His name is Mr. Ishak. I've been there many, many times. So this behind the scene, then you can see. So this is how they work out and then try to control the goodies. This is the metro where the whole thing was published. So this is what we are doing. At the end of the day, we are also getting good yield. Now, the last part will be the smart farming. So the smart farming, what do we mean by smart farming in particular? You are just using modern technologies and new ways of doing agriculture and its related industry without what? Not interfering with nature. So what I just show you is an example of smart farming, where we build on nature, at the same time we are becoming sustainable. So that being the case, you hear a lot of jargon. Some say smart farming in terms of precision, agricultural, drones, livestock. They are all what we call smart farming. But even the way how much you use your fertilizer, you don't over-fertilize, is also considered smart farming. So smart farming can come in different ways. You can use your agrobot, artificial intelligence, crop sensors. You are talking about LED technology, digital technology. So all these things come in cloud farming. So let me walk you through a bit. Whatever you are talking about, the latest technology, it should be able to monitor the crops. If you want to do irrigation, you must be precise. Computer imaging, pest control, soil management, all these things will come through your smart technologies. Now, what are the new ways? When we talk about new ways, all that we are trying to say is example. I'm using this again as algae. If this is an algae, and then you can transform the algae and do what we call the algae feedstock, and you can use it. It's also considered smart farming. You have not used any sophisticated gadgets. So smart farming is not only using sophisticated gadgets. Example, if let's say you are given this basket or whatever, and you are asked to fill it to the brim or to even half. If you don't close this gap, how do you get the water? So this is what is going on in agriculture. You must know the problem and fix that problem, and the rest will take you. So if you want to fix the problem, you need to close this part, and then you get the water level rising. So the next problem is here. So that's the only way you can make it. So if you are ordinary farmer, you don't have this idea, you are not being smart. You always put in a lot of effort, but you are not being productive. Those who are smart are the ones who will make it. So those are some of the things. So let me use this scenario for you to see what I really mean. Let's say you are going into farming. We have this belief that NPK all the time, just buy. What you need to do first is to take the soil. If you are going to grow in the soil, look at which nutrient is deficient. So that nutrient is the one that you have to buy your fertilizer or whatever. So here, the deficient nutrient is P. So you don't have to buy N, you don't have to buy K. Just buy P and then apply. Once you do that, you boost up the P. You can see that's why your yield is increasing. If you want to go beyond this, then you don't need to focus on N, P. You have to focus on K. So you buy only K fertilizer, then you apply. Then this is why you see here now your yield has increased. Now, if you want to go further, then magnesium and sulfur. So what I'm trying to tell you is you have to look at the limiting factor and you address the limiting factor. That is the time. But of course, you cannot go one by one. I'm just giving you as an example. So this is what I mean now. Now, you cannot go on and on because there is what we call diminishing return. So we need to be careful because the plant, you go more than a certain level, you are going to have problems. Now, we have the technology. You don't have to go one by one. We have the sensors. You just have a probe, you dip it in the soil, and it can tell you whether it's a moisture problem, temperature, oxygen, NPK, whatever. You can get all it done. So these are some of the technologies. Now we have them. You can even on the field. You don't need to go and take the soil sample and analyze. The technologies are there, the sensors, they just poke into the soil and they can tell you this is the amount of fertilizer and this is PK. How much do you need? You need to calculate and then you add it. That's all. And then we are also talking about probes. In fact, now we are using biological. There are certain insects that can take, if let's say you put them in the soil, they can reflect they give some reflection. So the certain colors will tell us whether it's nitrogen deficiency, phosphorus deficiency. So this is what we call BioBlix. So we are using the sensors in terms of insects are also possible. So this is biological. And then we have also the sensor that will tell you about the topography and then the organic matter distribution. You can see here, when you see here, the color is different. Whether you have built up organic matter, why is the color different here? So these are some of the things that we can talk about when you talk about, smart farming. The other aspect will be, these are some of the probes. The probes will come and you just take the probe, you probe it, you can talk about your EC, your pH, your soil NPK or whatever. So those are some of the things. But remember, you don't overdo things. Plants are just like human beings. So you give them too much, they will react. This is where diminishing return. Those of you who are in economics, it works in plant. So example, when you look at here, first you apply your fertilizer, you get the response, But when you get to this level, that is the optimum that you go. And you don't have to go maximum, because when you go beyond this, the fertilizer is going to be toxic. That's why you see that there is a decline. So you must have that kind of smartness. How do you do this? You have to know what is in the soil, what the plant needs, and what you can supply. That makes you smart. So this is an example. Another way to look at smart farming is to look at scenarios. If you take the situation, the context of Malaysia, you see they started with rubber. Then they realized that no, oil palm will be better. And we were in Africa, they got the oil palm and they became #1. This is smart farming. And then now they moved to coconut. They realized that coconut also can be moved away, or you can improve to another level. So they are talking about pineapple. You go back home, a lot of pineapple, but they are not going for ordinary type of pineapple. They are looking at MD2. That is the superior pineapple. And then they are also looking at durian now. You see, so this is what we call national plan and strategies. That is how many years we've been fixated with cocoa. So those are some of them. See, they have different types of pineapples, but they are only fixated here because that is the future. So those are some of the things that I would like to share with you. And then the next thing that I would like to say here is the ultimate goal of any precision agriculture is to optimize your soil resources, your plant and animal, in relation to the human ecosystem services. That is when you are being efficient. So that is all that precision agriculture is about. Now, that means that you can maintain the level of your input, but you will get optimum productivity. That is one aspect. The other aspect of precision agriculture will mean that what do? You can maintain the same productivity, but you will reduce your input. That is another smart way of doing things. You are being very, very smart. And the last part will be, you can increase your productivity, but you reduce your input. This is what, when you use latest technology, it should be able to do. So this is what Africa should be looking for. Once we go into this, the rest will become just a walkover. So what will then be the mission for Africa's agriculture? Let us pursue agriculture as a business. And then what we can look at it is not only the farming aspect, but the related services. So here we are talking about whether it is agronomic issues or you are talking about economic issues, but at the end of the day, we should maintain the quality of the environment. So we must make money, but at the same time, we maintain the quality. Now, what will be the goals? The goals for Africa will now be that we must have anticipation to know the root cause of our problem and the potential problem and solve them there. So this kind of cosmetic kind of solution should never be done if you are talking about smart farming that will propel agriculture. So this will help us in terms of plant, soil, animal, and human productivity. We shouldn't just be cosmetic. And then what will be the objectives? Objectives should be, we should emphasize on agricultural efficiency, not only mass production, but how efficient we are. And then number 2 will be that we must be economically efficient. So that is also very important. And number 3, we must be environmentally efficient. These are the 3 things that I think a national policy continental plan should be looking into. Now, that being the case, if you talk about smart farming, we should look at it from farm to table, because we have what you call traceability. So we have to have all these chains going on. This is why you have your robotics. We have the agrobots where you don't use your cutlasses and hoes. We can use these kind of things. And then we have our crop sensors, like I said, we should have our soil sensors so that they'll be able to look the spatial distribution of the soil. You can see why is this place red, why is this place green, and how do we fix them. This is where we can deploy or we can count on what we call light emission diode. You see, when you look at the sunlight, this is the sunlight, and you can see clearly that it has certain emission of what? Certain wavelength of emitting light. So here, we don't have to be depending on the light, the sunlight more, but we can also have light emission. These are technologies that have been developed and they mimic light. So here, even if you don't have light, you should be able to grow, your food. So this is the technology. So we are not talking about incandescent lamp or fluorescent tube. So this is it. How does it work? Because it has a wavelength. You see, the idea is the plant or the soil, when you beam a light or sunlight, they absorb some and reflect some. Those that are reflected, those are the ones that we are measuring to see the healthiness or the quality of the plant. So here, this is the sunlight. So if you use the LED technology back home, we should be able to do that even in the dark. So this is an example. So when you use the LED technology in the absence of sunlight, let's say you can have the light. If the plant is a seed, you want it to sprout, you just supply red light. If you want the plant to grow and photosynthesize, red plus blue. If let's say you are talking about flowers, it's red, but the intensity must be high. Now, if you talk about fruits, then you are talking about red plus blue light. And if you want to have more nutrients, then ultraviolet. So here, the LED technology helps us to mimic the sunlight, and then we can cascade whatever we want according to our taste. So this is how. So if you are in the flower industry and you want more flowers and whatever, then you have to go to the near infrared. Then you can get the blossom of a lot of flowers. So these are the important things. So the LED technology here, without the sunlight, it can grow any type of crop. That is what I want to cut across. You name them. So that is the advantage. Those are the things. And you can even do indoor type of agriculture by using the LED technology. Here, sunlight is not involved, but you have the lights that can do them for you. So those are some of the things that I think we could go in. So to summarize it all, you can have the light to change the way the plant grows, the way the plant also transform the taste. You can also do that. Even now we are talking about vitamins. How do we manipulate the plant to produce good vitamins? And then we are talking about antioxidants to avoid some sort of, we are talking about, we are talking about cancer, and then we are talking about shelf life. So these are some of the things. And even you are also talking about livestock, you are talking about poultry and whatever. So those are some of the things that I think we can share. These are all what you call LED technology that I think we should try to adopt. Now, in terms of bird, what do? The blue light will calm the birds. And you know, in birds, when they are stressed, they undergo cannibalism, or they do what you call feather picking. So you can use the light to calm them. And I think that is very, very important. And the blue-green light to stimulate the plant to grow in terms of productivity. And when you talk about stimulation of reproduction, this is what is necessary. So these are some of the things that I can share. The last part will be digital technology, like I have already told you. Imaging, where you have your database, you can look at your food size, the quality, you are matching your database, the color, what does it tell you? So these are all helping you to be efficient. Labor intensive is not the one person can do everything. And then you even have some of them that can do weeding for you, because they will mimic the color of the weed and then they will weed, but they will not weed the plants, your crops. So these are what we are having now. And of course, we are talking about cloud farming and whatever. So all these things are there for us to tap. So these are some of the things that I think Africa will be looking into. So once we have this, we can do indoor. So we are not even talking about, you have your house, you have your cabinet, you can grow your own food and you eat what you want. So then future farms will be very small. 1 hectare, 2 hectares, you will just have to sit in the comfort of your house. And then from there, what do? You just control your drones and your machines. So they will do the survey for you. If you want to fertilize or you want to irrigate or whatever, you use your agrobots. If you want to use intelligent, what we call it, tractors, for them to do the, scanning, for them to fertilize, for them to spray your water, they can do so. And of course, even animals, you can communicate with your animals. How do you do that? You just have to put sensors on them. They can tell you when they are going into labor, When they have some diseases or whatever, you can just communicate. So there's going to come a time you don't have to get close to the animal. So those are some of the exciting moments that I think Africa will look into. And then of course, your spatial distribution is there. You can see clearly the land form, it might look like it's uniform, but they are different. This is what we call site-specific management. So how you manage here will be different from how you manage this part. It's very, very important. Let's make it precise. So you spend less money here and then you focus on this. And we can also on and on and on. And then these things can be mounted on your tractor. So you can, if you don't want to sit in your office, you can be mounted on your tractor. And as you navigate the plot, you will see all of them. And even if, let's say, you want to spray or you want to do cloud seeding and whatever, you have your drones. So these are the realities. In fact, those of you who are in insurance, sometimes there is issue of your word against my word. So once you have the drones, they can pick and see whether you deserve to have your insurance claim. Was it due to pesticide? Was it due to, a wind or whatever? All these things are now available. And the last part is what we call the near-red infrared technology. Here, when a plant is having, you see the plant on the surface, beneath it is spongy. So when you throw light, that one can tell us, the reflection of the light can tell us whether the plant is healthy or not. So whenever you see that your near infrared is almost equal to the rest of the light, then that plant is going to die. So you will know what to do. So when the plant is under stress, you see here, it died because the near red is quite low. Now you see when the near red increase, it only shows some stress, but a significant improvement in the near red is now telling us that the plant is healthy. So these technologies are there that we can capitalize on. So you don't need human intervention anymore. Dr. Mutaka, just hold on. This is the juicy part. So kindly hold on for a while. So the next one here is the summary. If you want to know the organic matter content, you can use the infrared technology. It's there, it's just a sensor. If you want to know what we call spectroscoping, spots of diseases, you can do that. Even if you want to improve the nutritional quality, it can be done for you. And if we talk about harvesting time, I just show you. If you talk about food processing, remember we were talking about shelf life, post-harvest losses, in here infrared will do it for you. And grain quality, it can also do it for you. And the other aspect that I think we should talk about, diseases and whatever, in Africa, the plant diseases are issue, pathologies and whatever, this is where you can capitalize on. Drought can also be monitored. You are talking about quality control. So all these fish quality also. So you see, the technology is there. This is why I said if Africa can adopt technology, we will definitely make it. So breeding programs, everything. So these are some of the things that even you can use what we call the unmanned area vehicles, that you can use them to even count how many of your fruits are ready. You just go avenue by using your drones. And then we can also use the same technology. At Link, it's a type of ripening kind of information. So you have the technology to absorb it and reflect it and tell you when is it going to ripe and when do you have to harvest. Because some of the crops, if you harvest late, you are throwing away your money. Example, oil palm, if you are talking about what we call the fruits, if you go and most of them are falling on the ground, it means that you are losing your money already. So these are some of the things. And of course, diseases and whatever, all these things can be done. Now, the last part will be, let's say if you don't want to use the soil, what do you do? This is where urban farming comes in. So here, this is one of our students who did try to show this thing kind of her research that we can do urban farming. So this is just in one of their research stations. And you can see clearly that you can also grow rice in troughs. So you can see how beautiful the plants are growing. So you imagine you have your own backyard and you don't need to own a land and you are interested in this. This is what you can produce. So it is done. So these are some of the concepts of urban, whatever. Of course, here also, these are some of the things, even though it's a greenhouse, but it's still okay. At least you can mimic this if you try to work on your own, just for your own consumption. You know what you are eating, you are controlling everything. But for us, we always involve our students. Whatever we do, we want them to understand, we want them to see. So this is, and they participate. So those are some of the things that I think I can show you. They are very, very important to us because the youth has the future. So these are some of the things that we've been doing for many years ago. And then from there, you can see this is when you are when you adopt our technology, and this one is the conventional type that is not doing very well. And you can see closely that definitely the roots are doing well, they reflect into the plant. So this is what we call food quality. And then, of course, you are talking about greenhouse. Greenhouse is more or less like you want to reduce labor and you want to automate everything, and then you can control. You can control it from your office, from your home or whatever. This is the basic idea about greenhouse. Of course, you want to eliminate diseases and whatever. So you create your microclimate, so you don't need to be at the mercy of the rainfall. So all these things can be done. And of course, it can come in different ways. It's only that you need to know how to customize your own thing. So these are some of the things that the greenhouse can do. And in fact, it can even, you can also use your sensors to test and see which ones are ready to ripe, which ones are not ready. So all these things are possible. And we have the robot that can even tell you how tender your vegetables or your fruits will be. So those are the, so I think we in Africa will have no choice but to adopt this. No more excuse. It's either we take it or we leave it. So vertical farming is also there. We all know vertical farming is more to the urban centers, but these are all buildings where people are now growing whatever they want to grow. These are not creeping plants. They are vegetables. And this is featuring in Singapore and other parts, and think even Malaysia also is trying to work on that. So these are what we call green buildings. When you hear green buildings, we are talking about vertical farming, unless you decide to grow your own creeping plant. So these are all things that we have to look into. So it's not only about soil. Some are even talking about rooftop farming. So your rooftop, we can also convert it and grow things. So your own house, you grow your own things, you eat your own food. This is an example of a classical rooftop kind of thing. You might think like it's a sports stadium or whatever, but this is rooftop. So you are growing your crops and whatever. You can control the environment. You know exactly what you are doing. So even it can be a small one. It depends on how innovative you are. These are all rooftop kind of things. But my point here is the way we build things back home in Africa, if we really want to go into rooftop farming, then I think we will have to modify our roofing systems. Perhaps we can do what we call secret roofing. When you do secret roofing here, how are you going to do rooftop on this? Even if you want to do, it's going to cost you a lot. So this is what we call secret roofing. And then you can see clearly you have created this platform where the same roofing can be used to produce food, and it can clean the air for you, because remember, plant will take in carbon dioxide and give you fresh oxygen. And then of course you are producing your food. You can also attract what we call urban wildlife, where you can see birds and whatever landing on top of your house or whatever. And of course, here you are reducing energy, because if you are using air conditioning or whatever, or fan, your house will not be too warm. So you are not going to use too much of this kind of energy. And of course, if you look at this, if it's raining heavily, the impact here will be different from this, because the plant and organic matter are absorbing the impact. So this is the advantage of what we call, rooftop farming. So the next one, the last part, I'm saying last part, but I never finish. I'll finish very soon. So the last part is, if you go through the soil, understand the physical and chemical nature. This is the ecological setup of the soil. Once you disturb it, then you are going to have problems. So like I said, the galamsey that is going on back home and all this erosion and degradation, it will disturb the ecological balance. So for you to maintain the balance, you need to know what is the structure, what is the texture, what is organic matter, what are the microbes, what are the rodents. They are all playing part. So these are some of the things. So then if you talk about positive interaction, this is where you should be. If you don't listen and you try to degrade or you make the ecological imbalance, then you are going to have negative interaction. And the negative interaction is where we are here. You are putting in a lot of money and whatever, but your output is very poor. This is what has been happening in Africa. So example, this is a classical example where you over-fertilize, because you see the green colors are telling us you have applied too much of nitrogen and phosphorus. So if you are very smart and you know what the plant needs, you give them what exactly the plant needs, you will not see this. So we have to go in and advise you and take your money. That is the only time your water becomes clean. But if you know it yourself, You don't want to waste your money like you are throwing it down the drain. So this is how sometimes we get consultancy. You just try to advise them, this is what you need to do. At the end of the day, they are happy, they get it, you also get your money. So this is how knowledge is very beautiful. So if you are the farmer, you know all these things, you don't have to engage a consultant. If you don't listen, you over fertilize, and then you can cause greenhouse gas effect. And that is also going to work against you. So those are the things. And the last part is you can never talk about tropical environment without talking about soil acidity. This is where I'm going to end my talk. So if you look at here, the whole world, you can see, look at the map of the world. The red color, the red, what do you call it, color, or the red side are the ones that are acidic. The blue ones are the ones that are saline or alkaline. So here you can see in the continent, we also have acidic soils. If you look at this closely, this is Africa. You can see around the, what we call it, the sub, you are talking about the equatorial area, and then you are talking about the tropical zones. You can see most of our soils are acid. So here we will have to work on them, because you need to understand the basic understanding of chemical property of a soil will be the pH and organic matter. So you see, when your pH is so high, how are you going to grow your crops? Not every crop will survive in this kind of pH. So the best pH will be around moderately to slightly acidic. So here is very, very important. Why? Because if you are within this zone, between 6.5 to 7 or 7.2, it will match with your crop. Most of the crops, they grow within this region. Only a few will go to the periphery. So the basic understanding of the soil acidity is very important. If not, you are going to have deficiency of nutrients. What are they? You're going to have nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, sulfur, magnesium. They're going to be deficient. These are micronutrients, and your plant will definitely not do well. The micro will be copper, zinc, and manganese. So those are the issues that we will have to know. So this is why it is very important as an ordinary farmer, you should know these colors. So when you see yellowish color, what does it mean? It is nitrogen. If you see purplish color, what does it mean? Phosphorus. So these are, if not, you are going to have problem. Now, just now I showed you why are the soil look reddish, because they contain iron. Iron is like when you have your iron sheet, white, it corrodes, then it becomes like a brownish and it's becoming reddish. So you can imagine these are all toxic for the plant. So once the plant touch it, they touch this kind of, reddish colors, iron, they become toxic. And of course, they start to die because the soil pH is there, is very acidic. At the same time, you have iron toxicity. Now, aluminum also is a problem. So you look at the African, if you look at the middle belt to the southern part, you can see that we have a lot of aluminum. Then we will also have to work on that. If you don't listen, too much of aluminum, you can see. Aluminum becomes very active when your soil pH is high, when the soil is acidic. So if you don't have a system to reduce the acidity, you're going to have high aluminum. And remember, aluminum is toxic to plant and it can easily kill plants. So you see here, the reason why we are more concerned about aluminum is it's not only toxic, when it undergoes hydrolysis, by the time it completes hydrolysis, it will produce 3 hydrogen ions, 1 mole. So if you have 1,000 mole, you produce 3,000 hydrogen ions. These are going to kill your plants. This is why you hear people say, do liming, liming, liming. But I'm going to show you that we don't use mineral liming, but we use organic system to do it. Now you see here, because the pH is 4.0 and you have a lot of aluminum, this is why you can see that the plant roots are not doing well, because acidity and then the aluminum. However, what if you do the liming? If you lime or you improve the soil pH, what is happening here is you have suppressed aluminum. So you see from 15 to 2, and you can see how beautiful the plant roots are growing. So these are the smartness of the agriculture that I think we need to employ when we are in the field or when we are doing agriculture back home. So I'm going to show you, if you don't listen and you don't fix iron and aluminum, when you apply your fertilizer, example like phosphorus, phosphorus is a negative charge element. You have iron and aluminum in your soil. So when you apply phosphorus, positive, negative charges, they hook up. So it's like handcuff. You apply this much, but only 2 or 3 goes to the plant. The rest are wastage of money. But when you maintain the right pH and you do the right liming, whatever, most of these nutrients will now go to the plant. So this is where you should aim at if you want to be smart. If you overdo it also, it will just be like the way you begin. So this is where we need to teach our farmers what to do. It's not about talking too much, but it's about what you do. So at the end of the day, we are also in the tropics. We don't have a choice. There will be rainfall. Much as it starts to rain, if you don't have much organic material to hold your nutrient, they will be leached. So if they are being leached, what is going to happen is your good nutrient will be out, and the bad nutrients like iron, aluminum, and hydrogen will be taken over. So once they take over, what is going to happen is you are not going to have your nutrients, one of them being phosphorus. So they will all get out, and the bad, elements will come. And then once they come, and then you are going to have your plants going to die. So these are the realities. So you need to have this fundamental knowledge. If not, you will just be dumping them. I have got a number of friends who never consulted anyone. They went to agriculture and then went bankrupt. So let us be very careful here. Let's say you didn't listen, and then you just try to dump in your fertilizers. Once you see this color, you are in trouble. That tells you that you have problem with phosphorus. Remember, I did tell you phosphorus react with iron and aluminum, so they get fixed. This is why you have this purplish color. If it's maize, you can see this type. It tells you you have big problem with phosphorus, and partly due to iron and aluminum, then you will be in trouble. So these are the deficiencies that you will have to know. So for us, if you don't listen, you continue to do, you apply your fertilizer ignorantly. If it's nitrogen fertilizer, it's going to volatilize because you have not solved the problem, and then you will not have it. And at the end of the day, you will end up polluting the environment. The next stage is, if you talk about phosphorus, phosphorus, like I told you, is going to be hooked up. Only the whole of this now is not available. You have only a few. So you will not get the optimum yield, and you are throwing your money away. So for us, we go organic. That's why I'm stressing that Africa must go organic. If you add the organic material like compost or whatever, it has functional group that will rather fix your bad nutrients and then allow the good nutrients to go to your plant. This is what we've been doing all along, and these are some of the things that have really made some progress in this country. If not, the disease of phosphorus can spread like cancer. It can go to the stem and can also go to the grains. So this is an example. Once you see this, you are already in trouble. So we don't want this. And if phosphorus behave like nitrogen, and this is what you have. So in terms of potassium also, whenever it rains, it can be leached out because you don't have a system to glue them together. And that system is organic. So these are some of the things that I think we have to be very careful. So when there's too much of rainfall in the African continent, these are some of the things. So let me show you the last part where we use waste. So all these waste that I told you, we started preparing the waste, and then I can tell you how we, all sorts of waste, we have worked on them. So from here, we've been able to use them. This is one of the pioneers who work on them. I mean, he's also working, I think, Dr. Hack, I'm not sure if you are here, you are being acknowledged. He also work on waste, and then he work on pineapple. And then we produce, and then these are some of the things, leadership by example, you do together with your students, and then you produce the product. I think this is Dr. Latifa, I think she's here. So these are some of the things that we do. At the end of the day, we don't maintain in the lab, we go up to the farmer's field. I'm going to show you from the lab to the technology transfer. So these are some of the products that we produce, and these are some of them. This is Dr. Ali, who is now in Ghana. He's doing very well. These are the products that he's coming out so far with the University of Ghana. I think that is very good. And then here we also, what we do is together with the farmer, when they have the machine, we provide them with the machine, they do the dehusking, and then the paddy straw. Now that is the latest approach. We give them the machine, then they will use their own paddy straw. They don't have to send it to the milling center, and then they will recycle their own wood. I'll show you how this is the environment. This is where we go, we do together. We teach them how to produce the organic fertilizer from their waste. And then from the end of it, they will go to the farm and then they apply. So this is zero waste. They produce the waste and then they recycle the waste. So 100% zero waste, that is the concept that we are championing now. And then again, this is another one. Dr. Ali also tried to replicate back home, and he is using cow dung manure plus certain, ingredient that I cannot display, I cannot disclose here. And he has been trying them, and they are also working well. So here also he did some work, and these are some of the products that we have come out. and we have tested them. So these are the realities of life. Now, why were we hammering on this, or we've been hammering on this? Because the truth is, when you go organic, you have certain active ingredients. One of them is called humic acid. They are very, very good, and they can complex your nutrients, and they can hold your nutrient and water at the same time. So here, these things can even serve as water harvesting medium for African continent. So this is fulvic acid, and then we have the humic. So these are some of the things. So what do? They have liming effect. Remember, we don't go chemical, we go organic. Remember, I took my time to tell you about iron and aluminum, and then phosphorus also. So they can fix all these things and make phosphorus available. So at the end of the day, they are going to improve your nutrient holding capacity. Your buffering capacity will also be improved. And at the end of the day, just like women, the way you condition your hair, we're going to condition the soil and improve the soil quality. And at the end of the day, we will improve the quality of the soil. Now you see, this soil is sick. The color is telling us, a little bit yellowish, is telling us. So when you bring in your fertilizer, the color will remain almost the same, but you haven't solved the problem. That's why you will never get optimum yield. So here, what we do is, if you use the organic approach, what we are doing here is we are detoxifying the soil. Just like human being, you want to detoxify. This is why the color is different. So now the quality has been, restored. And if it's true, once you plant, you compare, you can see the difference clearly. So you can see, this is the conventional. If you don't listen, this is what you are doing, and you never get your optimum yield. We planted them the same time, and you can see clearly that this part is doing very well just because the soil is healthy. And you can see is you're having the grains and you don't have it here. So these are some of the things that I can share, and you can see this is the conventional, and this is our approach. Which one will have your bone field? Definitely our approach. Now, in terms of, you see, it's not about how much you put. What is the efficiency? Now you see, this is the efficiency for the conventional one, and this is the efficiency when you use ours. So you can see clearly that it's very, very important. What are the nutrients? Look at nitrogen. The efficiency is better than T2. Look at phosphorus is better. Potassium is better. Magnesium is better. So you can see clearly that when you do the right thing, you are going to have effect. But only that you don't see them in the micronutrient because they are very little. So this is what I want to share with you. Again, I always show you whatever we do, we involve the youth. Whatever we do, we involve the youth because they hold the future. So in our teachings, in our practical demonstrations, we send them there, they will see, they do also. At the end of the day, it's not only micro, you need to go to semi-micro. So we adopt some of the farmers, and these are some of the things that we do. So this is a farmer level, and you can see clearly what we are trying to show is it's not from the lab to the field. So this is what we are showing you. So now you can see how beautiful the plants are doing very well. So that means that it is not due to chance. It can be done in Africa, and it's possible. We are not only dealing with rice, we are also dealing with maize. We are also dealing with vegetables. We are dealing with pineapple, papaya, and whatever. So they are all there. So for the sake of this presentation, you can see here, this is when you adopt our technology, when you are talking about vegetables. When you go conventional, this is what is happening. And this is Dr. Lee in Ghana also applying the kind of technology we are doing here. You can see he's applying them in the what we call it maize industry, and you can see clearly that they are doing very well also. So it's not by chance. You don't tell me it's only in Malaysia, but it can be done back home. So these are the realities that I could share for you, and these are some of the things that we've been doing. So I mean, from the rest, I'm showing you only pictures. The last part you can see. Look at a technology. You are having the grain filling, and this part you don't have the grain filling. So you can see clearly that when you deal with a sick soil, this is what you get. So let us go organic in Africa, and then we see. At the end of the day, we have to go big. So here we are talking about real-time farmers with their state-of-the-art technology. So these are some of the things. So before we go in, we see the situation, we diagnose the situation just like a medical doctor. You have to know the root cause, then from there you fix it. So because of this, we will have some clinics. So we deal with the farmers, we let them understand what is at stake and what we are going to do. And then from there, we introduce them. So we are talking about practical situations, And then from there, then we'll go in. Together, we work with the farmers. So they bring in their bulldozers and whatever, do the plowing together, then we give them the instructions. So the things that you saw in the, what you call small plots, they are the ones that have been translated into larger plots. Now, you see now, the soil quality is good. It doesn't look yellowish or reddish. That means that the quality is good. And this is what you can see, how the plants are growing. So these are the things that I think that if Africa will adopt, definitely we're going to employ the masses. We are going to have generational billionaires and millionaires. So these are some of the things. You will ask me, this year we are able to double the yield, and some, the good ones, are even able to triple their yield. So these are the things that I think that we will need to do. And here, when we do, it's not your word against mine. The stakeholders will go on in situ and then go and see whether you are bluffing or not. It will show. So the ground no lie. So these are some of the things that we have to display for you to see that is a reality, but it's not a bluff. So you can see the quality of the grains, and definitely you are making the farmers happy. You are making an impact. So this is kind of technology transfer that we've been involving for the last 10 years. These are some of the things that we are doing. So sometimes some of the farmers will challenge you. So you have to do side by side. So this is ours. This is the farmer. You can see the yellowish color is telling you that the plants are not doing very well. So at the end of the day, what is the yield? We are getting the yield, like I told you, we are getting 7 to 10, sometimes 13 tons per hectare. In this country, it's about 4 to 5 tons per hectare. So we have been able to double, and some farmers are making good time money. So these are some of the things that, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to share with you. And at the end of the day, you might ask me, you ask these organic kind of systems, what will be the quality? Is it safe or not? We have done all the testing. So here you use dielectric, means you go and do the testing and see whether the quality, the grain quality is there or not. And then we use the machines to check them. And then once we are clear, then that is it. So the last part is papaya. I'm not going to go into details. You can see also we have worked on papaya, and then you can see how they also grow very well. But what I want to summarize is the economic gain. So you can see here we have been able to double the yield, and then we have also able to improve the taste or the quality, and then we have also improved the nutrient use efficiency. At the end of the day, remember, pH has been improved, and then we are talking about we can shorten the growth from 8 months to 6 months. At the end of the day, the weight of the fruit also can be increased from 1.5 to almost 2.6. So these are some of the things. The last part, hydroponics. If you want to go into hydroponics, that is fine, it's very good. That means that you only use water plus your nutrients, and that's it. You don't need the soil, because the main role of soil is to support the plant or to supply nutrients. If you have the nutrient, you can have a support, then you don't need the soil. That is all that hydroponic is about. Of course, it has certain advantages in terms of the quality. You can control no pests or whatever. So these are some of the things that I can show you. But you can also combine hydroponics with what we call aquaponics. That is what we did in the rice farm that we are trying to work on. But if you don't want to go big, you can do it at home. Basically, you have your fish plus your plant, they react together. It's mutualism. So here, what the fish will do is, the fish here will eat and of course produce what? Ammonia. This ammonia dissolve in water, or through conversion by microbial activities to produce what we call ammonium. Ammonium is a fertilizer for the plant. And remember, the plant also replenishes the soil water. The water, because you have to replenish, otherwise the fish will die. So this is why we say it's a mutualistic kind of living. That's why we call it aquaponics. So the rule is simple. The only thing is you need to maintain your water quality, and then that is how it works. So these are all examples of aquaponics. Sometimes you don't want to use water, you just want to plant, but you want to supply your nutrient through air or mist. So this is what we call aeroponics. So when you talk about aeroponics, the rule is simple. You are not using too much of water. You have your blower, so you create a mist here. So long as the roots will not dry and you supply your nutrients, that's it. That is all what is aeroponics. Aero means air, but you need to create a humidity gradient here so that the nutrient goes, so that once they don't dry, then you can produce your food. So this is another type where you don't use too much of water. So this will be the mist, and then you blow, and that's it. So these are all what we call aeroponics. How do you compare them? You can see if you go by the conventional soil, ordinary watering, this is where you are. Where you go by, let's say you don't use soil, you use a organic medium, you will look better. But if you go hydroponics, you will be far better. So these are the technologies, and it scale up to a certain level that you may want is up to you. So these are all what we call hydroponics. And then what, to summarize them all, if you want efficient plant growth, you don't want to use soil, you don't want to use pesticide, fast growth, you want to save water, no pest, that is hydroponics. Fertigation, it can be soilless or with soil, but you are only supplying your nutrient through water. That is it. That is all that soil fertigation is about. So if it's soil fertigation, you must have your liquid fertilizer, and then from there, it can come from organic anyway, then you can do. So these are the tanks where you prepare your fertilizer plus your water. So you are irrigating at the same time applying your nutrient. That is what you call soil fertigation. So you can do them in all type of crops that you want. It's also possible. But if you want to go soilless, you can go. You can use compost, you can use cocoa peat or whatever medium, but you are not using soil. That is also possible. So you can just spray or whatever. These will be the fertilizer or whatever. So this is what we call fertigation, and this is the soilless type. But what is important is you must know how to mix your nutrient. I'm not going to go into detail with what stock A, stock B. So those are the ones. So at the end of the day, you will plant. So these are some of the things that I think we should be able to work on. My take-home message to Africa will be, Africa has the potential. We only have to know how to deploy our talents, look at the youth, empower them, let them use smart farming, and they will be the future millionaires and the billionaires. So those are the words that I will try to conclude. So whether I answer the question, for me, I think that yes, Africa has the potential. Only if we develop the youth, we adopt technology, we will definitely get there. But the political will must come in. Of course, I'm not saying that there will be, we work in vacuum, but I'm assuming that all things being equal with our potential, we should be able to get there. Thank you very much, Dr. Mutaka. And to my respected audience, I really appreciate your patience, and I apologize for being late, but I think that that is the best I can do. Thank you very much. Back to the chair.
Oh, thank you so much, Prof. Long journey, but with more. I would like to open up for questions and answers. In the meantime, I think there are some few questions in the chat box. Okay, sorry, I would like to read the first question. If Brother Shehu is here, wants to speak, can. Otherwise, I should read the question. I would like to know if it is possible for an individual to start up smart farming with little capital. So, Prof, that is the first question.
Oh, yeah, it's possible. Here, a number of people are doing it on their own. I have seen somebody here who started with equivalent of, let's say, if you don't mind, $1,000. Some have started with $2,000, and today they have their own companies. So it's possible. And in fact, in the African setting, if you can look at some of the ways and things that are not really being utilized, you capitalize on them. I think it's possible. It's very easy to go individual, but as you grow, you need partnership. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Prof. And then the other question is, what is the role of charcoal in soil preparation?
Okay, I see. I have almost 3 of our PhD students who are working on charcoal. Charcoal works just like the way biochar works. You see, it's a good absorber of water. It's a good absorber of water, and it's a good soil conditioner. So if you want to use charcoal, you can use charcoal, but you need to know how to blend them with your soil. So charcoal is considered as an organic amendment. Thank you very much. But if you are going to degrade the environment and produce charcoal, then the negative aspect is there. In fact, when you go to Kenya, my understanding, they even use it in the soil to harvest water at the same time to improve upon the soil properties. So here what we are doing is we are trying to use the charcoal to reduce iron toxicity, aluminum toxicity, to increase the soil pH. And then when we apply our nutrient, we are able to hold them and then release the nutrient for the plants to. So far, we have seen a very promising results with some of my PhD students. Perhaps later, if you want to get in touch with them, we can talk. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Prof. The floor is open. If you want to ask a question, please proceed.
Maybe I talk too much, so.
Hello. Hello.
Hello, please go ahead.
Yes, I'm Haruna from Ghana. And then, yes, from Ghana. My little concern with, in your presentation, you made mention of food security. Yes. And then with the food security component, you made mention of the healthy aspect. But when you look at the healthiness, my network is not that good, but
okay, healthiness.
The healthy aspect, that is the sovereignty aspect.
The healthy.
Yes, the healthiness, like in drawing my question to the use of this, the excessive use of these agrochemicals.
Yes. Okay.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, the excessive use of the agrochemicals, the proliferation of this excessive use of agrochemicals now in Africa, especially in Ghana. So how are we going to look at this as a challenge in a concept of our food security system? Thank you.
All right. Thank you. That is a very pertinent question and a very relevant question. If you realize, I have been hammering organic farming. I'm always running away from chemical. So here, this is why you see our technology, the one that I share with you, I never talk about organic. I talk about how we use waste to replace chemical fertilizers. So here, we must have the policy implementation. There must be those who are responsible for controlling proliferation of chemical. That is beyond my control, is beyond your control, but certain people have been mandated. So if we can work very well and promote local kind of production in terms of organic systems, then we should be able, because if you are saying proliferation, if let's say the technologies back home, they are rather having a belief in chemical fertilizers or pesticides, then we are in big trouble. They should move away from the chemical. I'm not saying 100%, but gradually we should be moving away. But if the champions are in it already, then we are heading out for trouble. You see, when I was young, I remember cocoa. You remember cocoa, right? Those days you go to the cocoa farms, we don't use chemical fertilizers. You get what I'm saying? But now chemical fertilizers are everywhere, whatever. So that means that policy implementation is not working somewhere, or certain people are championing the cause of the chemical fertilizer. So that will be difficult for me to say as an academician because I'm not a policy maker. But what I'm stressing here is let us go organic. That is what I've been able to demonstrate to you. Thank you very much. So those ones are the policy makers. I cannot talk about this, but I will not advocate for chemical. I'm also really against this unless necessary. This is where, let's say, like organic alone, sometimes depending on the crop, cannot handle the life cycle. So if you take a bit, that is what we call biological farming, where you have the organic plus a little bit of the chemical. That is accepted because we have a threshold. You get it? So that aspect is difficult for me to say this is what should be done because it has to do with policy.
Okay, thank you.
All right. You remember before you discharge chemical fertilizers into the system, we have standard boards, right?
Yes.
And then remember, let's say like the cocoa industry, you remember Cocoa Board is responsible for recommending any fertilizer for the cocoa industry?
Yes, in Ghana, it's TRCRC that is responsible for that, Plant Protection and Regulatory Services.
Okay, so if they approve that it should be released and it's chemical, then who is at fault?
That is the question.
Yes, so those are the issues. So we must be patriotic enough to do what is right.
Yes. Thank you.
You're most welcome. Please feel free.
Okay. Hello, Dr. Muntaya, please, can I ask a question?
Sure, please, Dr. Kasim.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Prof, for this wonderful presentation. Prof, my question is, how do we get the leadership in Africa to appreciate, the expertise that you have? How do we sell this technology or introduce it to the leaders that we have in Africa? For example, is the Ministry of Agriculture in Ghana aware of your expertise? How do we really get to help the leadership in Africa? Thank you.
This is a good question. On a personal note, and together with some colleagues, we made some moves, but I think it wasn't pleasant and I cannot disclose it here. So now it will not be on my part to be going around to say, hey, listen to me, this is what we have for you. So some of these fora that we've been holding, and those of you who think that it's worth it, you are the messengers now. Because at the moment, we've gone through certain channels, and I wouldn't want to release this kind of information because it's a bit sensitive. But I just give you an example in Malaysia. You can see they gave us the platform to prove concepts. What I'm telling you here, some of the projects are in millions, but they believe in us and we prove the concept through a proposal. But if you tender a proposal and somebody doesn't want to look at it, want to look at where you are coming from or whatever, it's very difficult. So those of you back home, we can liaise. We even try to open a, what we call it, some sort of a whole lot of things, but I cannot say them here. We have tried, but maybe we are not hitting the right. So for me, I leave it to some of you to carry the message. We are willing to serve the nation unconditionally, but there must be a way. But who is going to do it? For us, we have not been able to make it. Maybe Dr. Kasim, you and your group, you may send a message across them. We are willing to come in.
Okay.
But on condition that I don't belong to any political party.
Okay.
Just go there as a Ghanaian to serve.
Yeah.
As simple as that, as a professional.
Thank you very much, Prof.
You're most welcome.
Yeah.
Any other question or comment, feedback? While waiting, please check the chat box. There is a link for evaluation form, and then please include your correct name for certificate. Okay, the floor is open.
Okay, Dr. Muktaka, I don't think there is any other question. It's getting to 10 in the evening here. Hello?
Okay, thank you so much, Prof. Inshallah, we'll end here. However, before then, we'd like to thank you so much. We've learned a lot, and then to the participant, thank you also for being patient and for the positive feedback that you have written in the evaluation form in the chat box. And to our Christian brothers and sisters, we'd like to say we are deeply sorry for the timing. More than 157 have registered. The peak number that we had, or the highest number that we had today is 50. But quite a number of them, they have written back through email, talking about the timing. So perhaps our next session will look at an appropriate time that will fit at least majority of us, taking into consideration our Christian brothers and sisters. So understand Sunday at home and also in Nigeria, most of them from Nigeria, to say, yeah, they did well, they responded. So inshallah, next session, we'll try to look at the timing. Okay, if Brother Suraj is here, the Amir of Nur, if you would like to have some few words before Prof wraps up for us. Brother Suraj?
Dr. Mutakaya, I'm with you, sorry.
Yeah, so if you have some things to say before, I think I also present the certificate.
Okay. Prof,
okay.
We are grateful for your time and we appreciate what you are doing for us. And as you can see, Mutaka is showing the certificate. We also show appreciation for the last program. And this is the token from us to you for the wonderful and in-depth knowledge you have been sharing for us, with us. Prof, we are also grateful to have somebody like you championing the cause of agriculture across the world. And I appreciate what the brother said when he said we need you in Ghana. And I can also bear witness to the difficulties that you have faced, which we don't want to mention here. And like you said, we have to be the messengers and spread the word to our politicians and co, and see how best we can get some of you on board and help the continent. And I want to also extend this to our colleagues in Nigeria. If it shouldn't be only Ghana. If the Nigerians are ready and they can make use of Prof, anybody in Africa can make use of Prof, and then others can see that as a benchmark or as more or less like as an example to follow. And that will be very great for all of us. And I want to also believe that finally, I know we've spent a lot of time, so I don't want to be long-winded. But Yusuf was going to mention our website, An-Nur Al-Islamiyya. If you want to know more about An-Nur Al-Islamiyya, you can visit our website and you can get a lot of information there. Our website is annuralislam.com. You can Google or you can just type it in, and then you get more information about An-Nur. So on this note, Prof, we want to say a very big thank you to you and your team and everybody involved in your projects. And we wish you the best in this world and the year after. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much. Prof, any last words before we play the last videos?
I think your video is quite very slow, you know, Dr. Mutaka.
I've not started yet.
Okay.
Okay, let me play that before, if I have some commentary also, okay. Sorry, can you hear the sound is clear?
Yes, it's clear.
Okay, the sound from the video. I will just pause it just to test.
Yes, it's clear.
Okay.